Exactly.
I think it's kind of cute. I don't care about cute part.
You guys should have seen, yeah. Oh, she's gonna die.
Come on, do this.
Okay, we're ready.
So welcome to what I'm going to call the town meeting, a special joint Windsor Town Council, Windsor Redevelopment, Successor Agency, Windsor Water District, and our school board, the Windsor Unified School Board. Nice to have you guys all out tonight. We're going to jump to the roll call. And Jen, can you have a roll call for the trustees, please?
President Carnation.
Here.
Vice President Adams. Here. Trustee Ahmad.
Here.
Trustee Heights.
Here.
Trustee Lopez is absent. Student Board Member Jackson Caligari.
And Irene, I'll just mention that this is the Thursday, September 29th, 2022 special session. Roll call, please, Irene.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Fudge.
Here.
Councilmember Reynosa.
Here.
Councilmember Wall is currently absent, and I will note on his way. Vice Mayor Lemus.
Here.
And Mayor Salmon.
Present.
Thank you.
Eric, we're going to have a pledge of allegiance. We ask Trustee Heights.
Those of you that are able, please stand. Flag is to our north. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ask John or Jeremy any changes to the agenda tonight?
No changes, Mayor.
And trustees and council members, any conflicts of interest to declare tonight?
No conflict, but I do want to point out, I do have to excuse myself right around 7:30, 7:45.
All right, we're going to go to public comment, and since it's a special meeting, this is a special meeting that only comments or statements concerning the agenda items listed below are allowed. Public comments will be taken following, public comments will be taken following the staff presentation, initial questioning, comments by the council. Each public comment is normally restricted to 3 minutes in length and must be spoken into the microphone from the podium, which is right here.
With that, we'll go to our first agenda item is state of the town, state of the school district.
Mayor, pardon me. Just that we do have some members on Zoom in case they have any hands raised when public comment comes up.
We want to take public comment. Anyone in the audience? No one on Zoom? Please, Irene, thank you.
Checking for hands on Zoom, and no hands are currently raised.
You know, that's a good question, but
Does above work for all now, she said?
Oh, we have.
we can ask the AV people if that's a problem. I just assume that they could hear us. Okay. So again, I'll leave it up to the town manager Davis and Superintendent Decker.
Can you go ahead?
Setting my hands up rather than
They have a PowerPoint. Thank you, Irene. So John Davis, Town Manager. Good evening, council members, board members, Mayor Salmon, Board President Carnation. I appreciate the time this evening to talk to you a little bit about the state of the town. When we last met, I believe it was July of 2021. We've had a lot of accomplishments since then. The world has changed for the better, I feel. We're approaching the new normal, still figuring out what that may be, but we're excited about what the future holds. So I would just like to briefly take us through a few things we've done this past year and a few things that we are looking for
completing in the future. One of the big things that I hope that has been a positive impact, and from my circulation in my car in the town, I've noticed that it has been. We've done a lot of work on Star Road this past year, installing this Stellar Lane flashing beacon and the new pedestrian crossing. We did the traffic flow improvements at the front of Cali Calmeca, and I think those things have really helped the situation over there. Something that's not listed here that I was working on in my former role, and Olivia Lehman is taking it from there with the Traffic Safety Committee and the school district, is connectivity through the back of Cali, putting a pathway through the park that kind of meanders through the Oak Grove, and so there'll be access to the school there. So we're excited about that. The pavement preservation project, another thing that Public Works worked on this year. We started off a little bumpy, excuse the pun, but there's a new product down now in the town. Got on the right page with the contractor, and so you've seen restriping on Star Road as well as Pleasant Avenue by those school sites, and it's continued on throughout the town, and so we hope now that that product is going to last a lot longer than the previous way we used to do it with a slurry seal. Moving on to community development, as many of you know or read about or have seen the building going on in town. There's 740 residential units under construction currently. 186 of those are affordable housing. In the efforts to combat climate change, Council approved, or will approve, the final reading on October 5th of a new gas station ban in town. And there was a grant received for the California Energy Commission to facilitate and streamline solar permits. And so when people come into the town now, that process is streamlined, hoping to get more units with solar in the community. Parks and Recreation, of course, near and dear to my heart. This was the first year that we were able to get back to a full schedule, so to speak. But not only a full schedule, we were able to add multiple events into the community. And so Summer Nights on the Green was back to a full 14 concerts this season. Tuesday night movies, we had a slate of 9 movies, added a Sunday concert in, which was well attended. We had a fireworks show this year at Kaiser Park, and some really great cultural events. A big shout out to the new local nonprofit Somos Windsor. One of our Parks and Recreation Commissioners, Angelica Perez, is heading up that group with some really, really wonderful residents. And so we were able to try some new things this year. Working with Somos, we had El Mercadito, which was a Friday night farmers market. In July, there was a Taco Fest and the car show. And then 2 Fridays ago, we had a celebration for the Mexican Independence Day, and I attended, and I know several of you did, and that was a really, really nice event. And also working with the Parks and Recreation Foundation, this year was the first time we had Love Wins in Windsor, which was the Pride Festival, and we hope to make that an annual event out on the town green. The Kaiser Park Master Plan has been a big focus. You'll hear more about that tonight, but we were able to complete property acquisition. We've had good conversations with representatives from the Windsor Unified School District about where we're headed, public outreach, meeting with stakeholders. We have some good data that Olivia Lehman will be sharing with you later in our program. Just some other town programs and projects I wanted to touch on quickly that were accomplished. We approved a 3-year MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, with the employee groups in town. We're happy about that. Managing through the pandemic, as I know all businesses and the school district as well, going through that process and figuring out what that new normal looks like. We hired a part-time sustainability coordinator, and she's been with us now since last September. She's been with us for a year. Her name is Catherine Gabor. She's a highly talented and well-versed in all things sustainability. As you may recall, in 2019, Council passed an emergency resolution, and that was a climate emergency. And so in that resolution, there's 22 points that town was directed to focus on, and essentially that's become Catherine Gabor's action plan, work plan, if you say. And we've been working with each department to try to push those initiatives forward. We converted to monthly utility billing. A little hiccup with the software. Some of you may have received 400 notices, but we're on the right track. And I think in the end, once we all get used to it, it'll be much better for the user as well as internally. Virtual meetings and technology took us a few years, but we figured it out. And so now I feel like in the chambers, we have a good setup for these hybrid meetings, as well as in our council rooms. I mean, our meeting rooms behind the doors, we're able to now have Zoom, hybrid, people on site, people off site. It's really more efficient. I'm sure you've seen that as well at the school district. And they hired a new town manager. So that was So moving ahead and looking to the future, a few things I wanted to share again. Looking at the location of the middle school and Brooks School, there's a project coming in May to really take a hard look and improve the pedestrian crossings there on Brooks Road. And so there's hopefully going to be some speed reduction there, as well as some better crossing. And we think that'll be great for students in that area. Michael Hall Park, also, as you know, adjacent to Brooks, it will become a detention basin. And so we've had some area back there for quite a while, some good grass area. We have a project going forward to start in May that will grade that area, drop it down a little bit. There'll be no impact to the playground, is what I think is most important to the children that frequent that area and go to and from there to get to school. At the end of the day, when the project's done, we'll still have a nice grass area that everybody can play on. But hopefully the outcome will be that when there's flooding there up the creek, it will not spill out here on Old Redwood Highway, just north of Johnson Pools, as I'm sure many of you have experienced in the past. Community development, they've got some real big ticket items on the board. They brought the first draft of the housing element recently, working on the vehicle miles traveled policy. Short-term rentals is a hot topic in town. That'll be coming back in December for council and the public to give input on what a policy might look like going forward. We just started the first process. We'll bring a first reading to council and just finish the process of collaborating with the businesses to bring food trucks into the beverage district and other industrial areas. So we don't bring food trucks downtown. You know, we have some great brick and mortar businesses here that I know you all frequent and enjoy. And so we don't bring them downtown, but in the beverage district, we think there's an opportunity there to really increase traffic and activity there. And so we're going to be bringing that and looking at that option.
John, where is the beverage district? I'm not familiar with that term.
So the beverage district is just north of Wilson Ranch Soccer Park. So if you think of Russian River Brewery, that is technically part of the beverage district, the soccer park, and then those buildings all to the north off of Condi and Bell. Back in there's several breweries, several tasting rooms, and so we think of that as the beverage district. There's also a plan to have a little better signage that might help us all know where that is. Police. Can't say enough about our police chief, Mike Roush. I know many of you know him. The community outreach that he's done in his past couple of years since he's been in this role is just outstanding. He works really well with the high school. Recently did some walking with staff, Pete Sullivan down at WHS to look at possibilities of just target hardening, getting the campus a little more secure during the day, putting some fences. It sounds like there's some good grant opportunities there too through Cal OES. So that's something I think will probably be happening soon. Something else we're looking at for the near term is adding these flock cameras to the town. We have not brought this to council or for public comment yet. These aren't big brother, so to speak, cameras. These are specific cameras that look at the roads and they capture shots and they're used for crime fighting, crime solving. So say there was a sideshow at one intersection, and then later the police could go back and pull that data and use that to try to follow up with the participants in that activity. Or if there was catalytic converter theft or someone broke into a store or a home even and was speeding away, they would be able to use this technology to try to help solve those crimes. So that's something we'll be looking at this next year. And then police just plans to continue the community outreach collaboration with the school district in all areas. Parks and Recreation have some exciting things continuing at the senior center. This summer we put a new roof on. That was step one. Now the big remodels coming this fall. There's going to be a new bathrooms, new interior, new foyer, putting in some new offices, reconfiguring there to allow for a lounge, more of a clubhouse type of feel, so that we're hoping that we can increase participation there. I think some of you know Erin Stroud's our wonderful staff. She's over at the senior center, and she has a great constituency of seniors that attend all the programs there, and we'd like to make the facility just as nice as possible. Pickleball courts at Hiram Lewis. This is just adjacent to the middle school. As you know, there's 2 courts of the 4 tennis courts that are currently striped with pickleball. And then also the high school shares those 4 tennis courts for both women's and men's tennis. And so by adding these 4 dedicated pickleball courts, not only can we increase the activity around pickleball, but we can also release those other 2 courts and make sure that we have more availability of your regular tennis courts. So we're excited about this. Pickleball, fastest growing sport in America. Everybody can try it out. Maybe we'll have council versus board.
Bring it.
Yeah,
Wait, he's in the back. He's in the back.
Kaiser Park master plan update, that will come later today.
On
Yes.
pickleball, when I was at town hall and agreed during the concerts, people kept coming up and saying, when are we going to do that? And I didn't know the date exactly for construction of pickleball.
You know, I don't know the exact date that we're breaking ground, but I know we're getting very close. We have been waiting on the second round of a grant, and that grant, we didn't get the entire amount of funding that we were looking for. But so what we've done is we found another funding source that we're applying, and that's going to allow us to move forward and not have to wait for another grant cycle. I want to say this fall, is Olivia here?
I am. Good evening, Olivia Lehman, Parks and Facilities Manager. We're hoping to put the project out to bid this winter. We have a November 1st date tentative for putting the bid out, which would put us starting in construction in the spring. So we just need to coordinate with the spring tennis schedule. But our hope is by sometime in late winter, early spring, we'll be breaking ground.
Thank you, Olivia. And then other things looking forward to in the future. Now that we're returning to our new normal, one of my goals or main focuses here in these first couple months of my position is really employee focus with the rest of our executive team. You know, we want to attract top talent here in the town, and we want to retain staff. We have some really good staff in the town, and we want to make sure that they're having a ability to have a work-life blend. I don't know if balance is the right word anymore, but a work-life blend. And so we're working on some different policies and procedures that allow a little bit more flexibility in scheduling for those that have families or other commitments. Still be here to provide the same service to all the residents. We'll still be here to provide, complete our mission, which is to provide excellent service to the town citizens. We may have a little bit more flexibility in staff from a scheduling perspective. Yes.
I haven't spoken to Jeremy about this, but it's been bouncing around in my mind a bit, and this is a good segue. We currently have what's called the WELL program that he'll speak to later, for before and after school care for our students and families of local residents, as well as our teaching staff. Teaching staff can access that cost-free. Maybe a possibility that we could offer something along the way to town staff as well, to offer them, you know, attracting and retaining. If there's free childcare before and after school while they're working at the town, that might be something that could be a joint program that would allow us to help you guys and also help gain the enrollment of your workforce that may be in town anyway. Something to consider.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Heights. That's a great idea. So within the next year, we're going to do an assessment of the Civic Center buildings, update our emergency operations plan. Staff has continued to be ready and prepared to serve the town in the event of an emergency. We've had EOC visitations for the emergency operations centers But it's time now to go back and really redo the formal emergency operations plan. We've learned a lot in the last few years, obviously. The sheriff's been a great partner. We've identified the different zones and evacuation plans. And so now we want to go back and just look at the whole 9 yards, so to speak. When I last opened the plan, there was a CD in there. It wasn't a floppy disk, but it was a CD. And so I think it's time that we update that plan. And so that's going to be starting in January.
Stephanie doesn't know what that is.
Oh, okay.
John, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When you talk about an assessment of the Civic Center buildings, can you elaborate on what that means?
So what it means to me, and we have not had in-depth discussions yet with council and received direction, but it means more than just a structural assessment. It means an assessment from the operations standpoint, the structural and safety standpoint, the standpoint from sustainability lens of the HVAC and other operations and electrical units we have. Are they the most efficient and the best for our environment? So all those things, traffic plan, everything. And so it's something, it's a comprehensive thing that we would like to do. Of course, we need to bring this concept to council for direction to really narrow the scoping. But that's what I think of when I say
Does that include the sheriff's office? There's been a lot of conversation around whether they have enough room or they don't.
I believe we include all the buildings and all the operations, including the school district, and working with them closely as a partner to try and see where we stand with the Civic Center. And going to be supporting the clerk. Oh, roundabout construction. Let's not forget this. This will be done this year, and we'll be all done, including some art that's going to be being worked on, and it should be finished, from what I hear, by November. So I'm happy about that.
John, on the, maybe I have to step back on the emergency operation plan. Trustee, we're very informal at our meetings. We just say Bill, and I'm trying to think. So Bill's kind of brought this up, and we're working towards our district updating, managing, doing some different things. Actually, even having a closed session meeting with the sheriffs to kind of go over certain policies and procedures that maybe necessarily aren't public. But I would hope that maybe as you guys are doing that, and as we go down that road, that you and Jeremy can work together to make sure that our plans they work together. And then that might require we have a meeting that's just a separate thing about that down the road. But we're interested in going and learning and updating things as well. So maybe if you two could kind of keep that on your radar of making sure that whatever plans you guys are coming up with in ours, they work together. So that way we're not running parallel separate tracks, but integrated because whatever happens to one is happening to both. So anyhow.
Especially since we have buildings and rooms that could be accessed in the event of emergency. You want to make sure they're available and staffed and all those things.
So it just, you probably are already doing that, but I just wrote it down, just kind of remind myself that that's something that probably might be one of the themes of one of our future meetings shortly. So
We have been working together, especially with Chief Nash, like we talked about. We have met, but I think to your point, it probably does deserve more conversation explaining what we're doing, because we're just kind of making sure we're on the same page constantly. We learned a lot with the event that happened last year about some of our breakdowns in communication. So we spent quite a bit of time together.
Well, and we hear about things that happen in other areas in the country that you think of, oh my God, I could never imagine that happening in our town. Sure. And yet we have to be prepared for something that might happen like that in our town. So anyhow.
Absolutely. Thank you, President Carnation. As Jeremy said, we have been working together.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Just as Jeremy mentioned, we've been working together. We've been working closely on the care and shelter aspect. We actually entered into an MOU with the school district about availability and use and partnering on using the high school for a temporary evacuation point as well as a shelter if needed. We had a WUSD staff attend our most recent opening of the EOC. And again, Olivia Lehman, who's our shelter manager, she also has been talking with Pete Sullivan about the programs and processes you're putting in place. And so my vision, as well as our staff's vision, is that we will be collaborating every step of the way on that. It will be a public outreach process. We don't want to create this new EOP in a vacuum, and similar to what we're working on at the park, you know, it's number one stakeholder of the school district.
I just wanted to make sure, so what Rich is referring to, we have a safety plan, but we're integrating better now, I think, in the emergency operations, the comprehensive piece for the community. If we could make sure, Jen, and I thought it was the 20th, but whatever day it is, we're actually going to, under the closed session for security, there is actually a carve out for that. So we're going to talk, have some open session, but I'd like, if we could, Jeremy, make sure that John and whoever else he might come when the police chief is there, we're literally going to be talking, you know, means and methods and response using some school shooting experiences, fortunately or sadly, that were elsewhere. And how do we stand up in those circumstances? So I think it's important. We never have had that kind of conversation before, and interoperability of like our camera systems and getting law enforcement the ability to access those. So that's going to be a closed session piece, which I think is important in addition to the public outreach. So I think it would be helpful to have you and whoever else. And I know Chief Roush is going to be there with some of his team. I think the fire chief will be there, probably some other SWAT or other personnel from the sheriff's office. But would like, I think, to have you there so we just know that sort of where we stand.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we're going to facilitate the November election. I'm going to support the clerk, and we're going to get that done working with the county. And I believe that concludes my presentation. I'll try to answer any questions. We do want to continue to conserve water. This slide was in last year's presentation as well. We are still in a drought. We're at level 2 still, so you know that we're watching what we water and trying to save every drop. We'll try to take any questions.
Pardon me. And just as a reminder to council and the board, we do have ceiling mics. If you could just speak a little louder for our people participating online. Thank you.
Okay, so we need to speak a little louder.
I do have a comment, back to this last slide of the drought. So I just want to remind everyone, and in case the school district is not aware, we do have a recycled water program. So it's you can take your containers and transport that to your home to water your irrigation, gardens, for, it's not potable water, but you know, certainly you can use it for other uses.
Where do you
Free.
pick that up?
Kaiser Park, I believe if you go online, you have to just fill out a form. You do have to bring your own container.
I think it's on Thursdays. I had a neighbor with a truck, just to give you ideas, and he bought a 250-gallon container. Then he borrowed a pump from a neighbor, and his yard looks amazing, and my yard's all dried out. I need him to come to my house with that. And he goes to Kaiser, fills that up, and you can do that a few times a day if you want.
If some people need some of those totes, let me know.
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yeah.
Thursday, it was 10 to 2.
And so what were the hours, Sam?
10 to 2, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think you hear me?
Let's do it. All right. Okay, so state of the district. I want to go through just some of our district data. So this is, when I put this together, there's a lot that goes on in schools. And I could take this thing many different ways. I tried to focus on what really pertains to the town and what I think the town council might be interested in. So for our enrollment, we currently have 4,624 students. And then just some of our demographics, 57% of our population identifies as Hispanic Latino, 35% white, and then 4% multi-ethnic, 1% Asian. Our low socioeconomic percentage, we've got 51% of our students who are low socioeconomic, and that's important actually because our funding is tied to low socioeconomic status. And if you get over 55%, you get extra money, if you will. 11% of our students are English learners, and that number could be a lot higher, but we have a very good reclassification rate for our students who come in. Their first language is Spanish, or not English, I should really say. And so 11% of our students currently are English learners.
Our budget, we have a $66 million budget if you consider both unrestricted and restricted funds. But what you usually hear about in the news is LCFF revenue. So what happens when the state is, flush with money?
What's LCFF?
I'll explain it. What happens when the state is flush with money is they give us a lot of one-time funds, okay? LCFF revenue is our funds that we're kind of guaranteed, and it's local control funding formula. And so what that $46 million averages out to, and that's divided between Cali, who's a charter, and then the school district, if you will, which Cali is really just part of our school district, but it's funded a little bit differently. It's about $10,317 per pupil, per kid. But you see there's a $20 million difference because we have all sorts of these one-time funds or special education funds, whatever it may be. And if you see the little picture on the bottom right, I want to explain how we're funded because I know this is something that people talk about. Why do they have this and we don't have that or vice versa? The way school districts are funded is, look at the bucket, it starts with property taxes. The state sets a minimum threshold, that's the top of that bucket. Property taxes fill up as far as they can, and then when they stop, the state backfills the rest of the money to get to that minimum. Okay, so we're considered an LCFF funding district. Healdsburg, Geyserville, Alexander Valley, there's a bunch of other districts that are not this because the property taxes are such that it overflows. They get to keep the extra funds. So those districts have more money than us, which is considered an LCFF district. If you look at we are, I think we're the largest employer in Windsor, I think, correct? 305 of our people are certificated and 272 are classified, so we have about 577 employees. And everybody's always interested in this. So our teacher compensation, for salary, we have 30 steps. The way a salary schedule works in education is you start in the upper top left-hand side, and that's where your beginning teachers start. And as you gain experience, you move down. And as you gain education, you move to the right. Okay, so the bottom right-hand side is where your highest salary is. And so we fluctuate. Beginning teachers are $53,758, and then our 30-year veterans who have quite a bit of education, they're at $101,676. And then we have a very generous benefit package in Windsor. You can see these are our rates for the year. So for a 30-year teacher who is on the family plan, their total compensation would be $123,000, if you will, because we contribute $22,000 to the family plan. Yes, ma'am.
How does that salary compare to other districts? Are we pretty?
We are actually. We just did an analysis and settled last year with our employees. So we're very competitive with Unified. So like I was showing you, everybody's funded differently, and I was very simple here. But for instance, high school, if you're a high school student, you get more money for high school students. Roseland gets quite a bit of money because they're a concentration grant place. So essentially, if you're over 55% with your unduplicated count, which is low income, you get a certain amount of extra money on top. And then if you get over another percentage, you get even more. So we're very competitive. Our district that is most like us is Rohnert Park. Very similar benefits to us, similar salaries, similar size. So yes, we are competitive.
And if I could, that includes over the past 2 years in excess of 13% salary raises for all employees.
Right. Yep.
Unprecedented in education world.
Yeah, our past two settlements were 6% 1 year and then 7.23% the next year in terms of increasing our salary schedule. I will say we were competitive, but we made it a point, I'd say this board really made it a point to care about it.
And Jeremy, if I might, you asked salary, Rosa, and that's what you see in the paper. So Sonoma Valley's striking, and you'll hear, and here is the average salary for California. We view it, as I'm sure perhaps the council does, in what the compensation costs are to the district. So when you add those particularly unusually high, amongst the highest in the county benefits,
Fourth highest in the
we bundle those together. And we've had quite a bit of success over the years having conversations with both our certificated and class certificated as the teachers and classified unions where they talk compensation costs altogether as well, as opposed to, and they understand that if PERS or STRS, the two retirement programs, go up 4.5% that we can't control, that's an increase of our costs. They don't see it, but their pension is still good. So I think part of that is HR and the superintendent having that rapport with the unions to talk compensation. as opposed to salary, because when salaries come, it's like apples and pears. You really can't compare, but
Yeah, I think what we're really lucky is that we have a very good relationship with our regular partners. We work really closely together, we problem solve together. There's a good dynamic.
Apologize that I don't know the answer to this.
That's okay. So I kept it really simple, just so you all know. School finance is not nearly this simple, but I kept it very simple.
Appreciate that. Just going back to the top, can you define what low socioeconomic means? Like, is there a threshold?
There is, and I don't know what the number is, but there is a threshold.
So is
and
that
it's
like a
established.
family income
Yes.
level?
Yes.
And so can you ballpark it? Like, what are we talking?
Oh, goodness.
It's a sliding scale based on number of students, based on, all kinds of things. It's a difficult.
Because this is a very expensive area to live, right? So like, are we talking, are those folks with food insecurities, or is it just like they're behind
Here's what
the
I'll do.
curve?
I will text my CBO and at some point in my presentation.
And I don't want to distract the conversation, but if you don't
Exactly,
mind.
it's good to know.
It is, and I couldn't tell you what it is. It changes every year, so I don't know what it is. And what's harder for us right now is it's usually figured out through lunch programs. If you have people who get free lunch, they usually qualify as low socioeconomic. But right now, everybody gets free lunch, so it's a little bit trickier it's not a number that's readily available to me now because of that.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
But
Doesn't it also have to do with the number in the household?
yeah.
Different ages, there's a little bit of important.
It might not be loud enough. Teacher voice? All right.
okay.
All right. I can use teacher voice. No problem.
But Mike, I can tell you in the 10 years I've been on, that 51% was not 51% 10 years ago. It has
What was
increased.
it?
It's increased.
It has increased steadily over time.
How much?
38, something like that.
Yeah, it hasn't doubled, but it's gone up by 15-20% probably.
It used to be in the 30s.
Can we talk about that offline?
Sure.
I want to know why.
Sure.
Next slide, please, Jen. So our schools, just a quick rundown. If you go back one, Jen. Quick rundown of our schools. There you go. So we have Maddie Washburn, which is a TK through grade 2 school. TK is transitional kindergarten, so think 4-year-olds. And we have 530 students. And a big portion of those 530 students are our new TKers, which I'll talk about in a different slide. Brooks Elementary is grade 3 through 5, 460 students at Brooks. Cali is our charter. It's dependent charter, and there's an independent charter, which really has no ties to the school district, and they're dependent. They're part of our district. They have 1,170 students, and as you may know, it's a dual language immersion school, the best one in this area.
Great alumni, huh?
That's right. That's right. But we are the head of the North County Consortium, so in every part of Sonoma County, there are consortiums for special education because we have so many small districts that can't meet their own needs, if you will. They get one student that has specific needs, and they only have 100 students in that school. They don't have the resources. So we have a consortium here in Windsor where we meet the needs of Healdsburg, Cloverdale, Geyserville, Alexander Valley, Horicon, and Westside. So they send students to us, and we take care of them.
If I could, before we move on, you notice that it used to be Maddie Washburn were the Monarchs. Okay, Brooks was the Bobcats. We did a rebranding about 2 years ago. And so now we have a little baby Jaguar.
That's right.
We have maybe a preteen Jaguar. You'll see some others coming, but it's a unification of our programs, and it's helping to bring effect to the students where they feel included, and rather than, oh, I've got to get a new sweatshirt now. So
They're all
stuff.
Jaguars.
Good stuff.
Next slide, Jim, please.
Actually, the fact that we have that now, it's part of the idea. What it came from was that we want the town to be Jaguars, right? So you start off as that cute little,
Cub.
I mean, that's the best logo of the whole bunch.
That's cute,
But
yeah.
it really is. And so, because parents were like, oh man, I got to do this and this. And so there really wasn't a hand-me-down type of thing. But the whole point is, so hopefully now, over time, the town will begin to, kind of like Healdsburg is, they're welcome to H-Town, they're the Hounds and all that stuff. So we were trying to build an identity in the town as well, the schools that will bleed out into the town, different businesses. So that way we can get more buy-in from everybody to be a little more supportive all the way around. I kind of, many years ago, I was in the South, and every town you went to, that town was just plastered with whatever their logo of that town was, and it's just really cool. And so since our town's still kind of developing, kind of thought that if we could unify the schools and our logo theme, that our town, hopefully the idea is that in our town it'll bleed over.
I apologize for interrupting here. So, one thing I want to talk to you about, if we're talking about the branding, can we do something about calling the girls' sports teams the Lady Jags? Why are they the Lady Jags? Why can't they all be Jaguars?
They are Jaguars. I have no idea where the Lady Jags came from, other than I know that with the girls wrestling team.
So I've got a little girl, right?
Uh-huh.
Why does she have to be a Lady Jag and the boys are the Jags? Can they all be Jaguars? Can we fix that?
Yeah, I'm not even sure where it came from.
I don't know. I don't.
It's
remember
not a
it came from.
district initiated thing.
Yeah.
Since we have students here, our, just to make sure, our female sports refer to as Lady Jag.
Not all of them, but yes, I mean, because we just had the Lady Jag Bowl, wrestling's a big one, what you say. I would say all their tournaments and stuff like that, I've always seen Lady Jags.
I know Lady Jag Bowl is specifically branded as that, but that's because we don't have a girls football team. So if we want to specify that that event is a girls Powerpuff game, and that's what it's been for forever. If we want to change that name.
But like the girls' basketball team, they call them the Lady Jags, right?
I'm not as aware of that
Well, maybe.
at younger levels for sure. Maybe I'm not particularly involved with the specifics of the sports. But I definitely think that should be moved away from if that is the case. And we definitely call the people close to it.
I think it has gotten better too, because I'm a cheerleader, and when I was younger doing just the Pop Warner, I remember the high school teams were always Lady Jags and said it in their music and everything.
Right.
And now that I'm at high school doing it, I've never seen that for our sport specifically. So I think it's already starting to get phased out.
Early on with wrestling, they called them Lady Jags because Windsor, we had a really well-defined wrestling tournament for everybody. And girls would be in it, boys would be in it. But then when girls wrestling became its own official sport, and not just part of the team, and when it kind of separated, we were calling it Lady Jags, so that way other teams knew this was a girls tournament specifically. So we were carving out time, so that way everyone knew this is for the girls only, not for guys to come in. And so, but to your point, that's probably been 10 or more years. So I didn't know that it had kind of stuck or went to other.
It's nothing that's district initiated, so I think that we can definitely talk about that. Yeah. It's not a name that we have given as a district, so I think it's just evolved.
So I'll just, as a sports fan, I think it's still out there. And I think it's silly. We should get rid of it.
Yeah, I'll disagree with you. And Jeremy, I'm sorry, we did not introduce Ava. Ava Miranda is our student body president. So thank you, Ava, for taking the time to be here. She is the leader of student government. All right, I'm gonna jump back in. Windsor Middle, 732 students, grade 6 through 8. We've got 2 pathways there, culinary and maker. North Bay Med Academy is a very unique school. It's for 9th to 12th grade right now, and there are 80 students, which is up by about 20 students from the past couple of years. It's a big picture learning school, which is if you think of you have an interest and you get to explore that interest as a student, and it's very much you go out and you intern in your specific area of interest. That's kind of what North Bay Med Academy is. I'll talk a little bit more about them later on. Windsor Oaks is for grades 10 through 12. And we have 24 students, and a lot of times that has to do with credit deficiency. It's independent study. And then we have Windsor High School, which, as you guys know, is for 9th through 12th grade, and we have 1,630 students. And so Windsor High School. I want to talk a little bit about CTE, because we have focused extensively on CTE, and in fact are the leader in this county with regard to CTE pathways. So if you look, the different pathways that we have up there, you have automotive and welding, you have construction, which is Build Academy, which is new, which is why it's highlighted, culinary, dance, movement, performing arts, which is Nueva, public and community health, which we have 2 cores, pre-med core, engineering science, and then we have visual arts, which we call Arate. And if you look to the right, the thing that we're really focused on, it used to be all about A to G was a term we used to use, and that would get you into, CSUs or UCs. And then it was all about being career ready,
but now we're really trying to do it all. So we focus on college and career readiness, and there are many different ways to be deemed college and career ready now, which has changed just in the past 3 years. So you see on the right-hand side, that picture, that is what you need to do in order to be eligible to go to a CSU or a UC, okay? So that's one pathway to be deemed college and career ready. Another way is to complete a CTE pathway, and I just explained those up above. So if you go through those, but you may have not taken a third year or second year of lab science, well, you can still be deemed college and career ready because you went through that automotive and welding pathway.
So, career technical education,
Yes.
CTE.
Thank you,
Career
Eric. Get me.
technical education. Acronyms are a nightmare in schools.
Yes.
So I'm kind of the catch everybody guru on that because I live it every day.
Yeah, forgive me if I forget. Right now, our CTE pathway completion is 34.1%. Okay, that means they completed one pathway with a C- or better in the capstone course. You can also be deemed college and career ready through state test scores. I put a star up there because the past few years, because of COVID, we simply haven't been taking the state test. We just got our result. We're getting our results this next week. You can also be deemed college and career ready through AP exam scores. So 13.4% of our students have earned it that way, and that's scored a 3 or higher on at least 2 exams. Or through completing everything in that picture, right? If you do all those classes and you're passing those classes, you have completed your A to G completed, and 38.8% of our students have done things that way. And then some of our kids just do it all, right? So 11.5% of our students completed the A to G requirements and a CTE pathway. In my mind, guys, this is an area where we can improve. We have an amazing level of course offerings, and it simply hasn't been our focus to, focus on this data. So I anticipate that these numbers are going to continue to climb over the next few years, and we will be the premier school in Sonoma County with regard to college and career readiness. We're just set up to do it.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
What has been the impact of the pandemic on students? And I've just heard and read
Sure.
about mental health impacts and also impacts on grades. Can you speak to that?
I can. So I will say that we have undertaken a massive overhaul in our grading practices. Okay, so I'll start there. So the pandemic really highlighted the fact that we have some grading practices that weren't beneficial to kids. And we've had a number of teachers who jumped on what's called standards-based grading. Okay, so and also, so part of standards-based grading is really grading on what students learned versus did they just complete the work. All right, that's the basics of this.
Mastery.
Yeah, and we looked at our F rate because during the pandemic, it was highlighted in the paper. If you guys remember, we just had a massive number of failing grades. It was very hard for students to transition, and teachers as well. And so we've had a number of teachers who've looked at, so you're going to get me on my soapbox here. So if you look at statistics and you think about our grading system, what do you got? You got A, B, C, D, and then F, right? So that takes you down to 50%. But then we have a bunch of variations of F. We're going to have 50% of extra Fs, if you will, if you go down to 0%. So there's a lot of work that has been done to look at what does a 0 do to a student's grades and their ability to have success. So a number of our teachers have essentially instituted kind of a 50% floor versus a 0% floor. And the high school is spearheading a lot of this work, actually. So there's one. And then we looked at before, so we give something called iReady, which is like a state test. It mirrors the state test. And we looked at our data before the pandemic and then after the pandemic, and it's basically identical. So there's a lot of narrative about learning loss. Our students have shown either we did an amazing job during the pandemic, or our students were more resilient than any of us realized because they scored at roughly the same level. And mental health, yes, it was when coming back was extremely hard. We've added social and emotional counselors at every single school site, and that is new since the pandemic. But yes, there's a massive need. We could have a 3-hour conversation about that one too.
Thank you.
Next slide, Jim, please. So some CTE in action, upper right-hand corner. That's one of our welders. We have a fantastic welding program, and it's expanding this year. Build Academy is our newest CTE pathway, and you can see some of the products completed by our students. And I just thought this picture was fun, so I had to show it to you. Our 21-22 STEM team placed first for the People's Choice Award. Basically used a bunch of mystery materials and build a boat and have a race, and we kicked butt. So I thought it was a good picture. All right, some construction. So as you may know, in November 2016, we passed a bond, Measure F. It was for $62 million. To date, the district has spent $54.5 million of those dollars, $7.5 million remaining. And it was for many different things. You can read the language if you like, and it passed strong. We had strong support in town at 62%.
So you may not know, but school bonds only need 55%.
Yep.
We work in a parcel tax that would be more than bricks and mortar has the 2/3 supermajority. So if you saw that and said, well, I don't really see how that passed.
Right.
It's less than 66%.
But it doesn't look so strong to me.
Well, that's pretty good for a parcel tax.
And that was a difficult time. At the end of 2016 was a tough economic situation.
Yes.
So we're pleased that we got that result.
So we put with this money, so some of the projects that we completed, we put solar panels at all sites. So in 2018-19, our PG&E bill was $782,966. In 21-22, our PG&E bill is $285,000, and our lease payment for our solar panels is $293,000. That lease is a 25-year lease, so we have about, I think, 22 years left on that lease. But once that's done, we're free and clear, and we have a savings of roughly $500,000. So even so, with that lease, we still have a savings of $200,000 to the district.
I took that picture for my sister.
Okay.
Do we have one?
Go ahead, Jim.
And it provides shaded parking
And it
for
does.
staff and students.
That is true. At Maddie, if you've driven by, you might see our beautiful new classrooms. So we replaced a bunch of aging portables with new classrooms. Next slide. Hard to capture this one, but if you see in the upper left-hand corner, those are what those portables look like. Not the prettiest of things. And on the right-hand side, you can see kind of where we ended up building that grass area. The bottom left corner, where those portables were, we redid play areas for our kids and asphalt. And then on the bottom right-hand corner, that's the new building. We have an outdoor classroom. It's just gorgeous. So if you have a chance to get over there, they're beautiful. And our teachers are moved in and teaching out of those classrooms right now. We also have construction at Cali. So if you see on the upper left, you see the road, the pathway actually John was talking about potentially using that road to connect through the back. The buildings just to the left, those two rows, are where I'm talking about our construction. Okay, so those portables were in really, really rough shape. And we have taken those out, and on the bottom right is where we're at. That was about a week and a half ago. But we're getting ready to pour foundation. We've actually done some pours, and we're building this next building. Drum roll, there it is.
Wow.
So it's going to be a beautiful building, play area, and if you want to orient yourself just on the other side, you can kind of see the road, right? That road's going to go on the back side of the building.
Hillsburg beyond the trees, basically.
Yeah. So and we are actually ahead of schedule. I put that star because we were anticipated to be done in September, which was not ideal, right? That means school started. We have to move in the middle of the year. Nobody wants to do that. We're ahead of schedule by about a month and a half. So we're hoping that we can get this done by an August date and get our staff in there before school starts.
That's the good news. The bad news is there are 12 new portables on the soccer field.
Yeah, they're interim housing's never fun.
Temporary housing, but the results will be great in the future.
Yeah. So some district initiatives. So we are undergoing kind of a refinement of our focus. And we have been identified by SCO, which is our County Office of Education, as a district they believe has all the right components to become a model for our county. So Student Education has been working with the County Office of Education for a number of years. And I was approached by Dr. Harrington, who's the current county superintendent, to see if we would be willing to partner with Studer to become this model district, to work with them, refine our focus, and then hopefully spread what we've learned to other districts in our county. So we're in our second year with Studer, and we've identified our pillars, or what we're calling them, pillars for organizational excellence. You can see at the top, we're standing by all students connected and thriving, all staff connected and thriving, strong family, community, and school relationships, and sound financial planning and decision-making. I won't go through all of the different statements here, but I just want you to understand that we've been identified as a district that really can do this well. And our next phase, after we establish what's called our measures that matter, so these are our statements. Now, how are you going to measure our success? Is to develop our strategic action and really fine tune what our focus is, because that which gets focused on gets done, right? That's which gets measured gets done. So anyway, that's one initiative.
I'd like to add to that, if I may, that currently I think there are 43 school districts in Sonoma County, or joint use counties, joint districts, and to be chosen as the excellence group is feather in our cap, especially for superintendent. We're standing out above the rest in the eyes of the county office. So that's a good thing for us to recognize and for the town to be proud of it.
They funded 3/4 of the cost of what it was.
Even better.
Agenda. All right, one of our major initiatives, one of my first conversations with John was about this, when we were thinking about expanding TK before the governor gave us money. So transitional kindergarten, essentially think of kindergarten but 4-year-olds, right? It's the year before kindergarten. And the old legislation was you had to turn 5 between September. I'm talking super loud for the microphone. I'm not just an awkward individual, I hope you know. Had to turn 5 between September 2nd and December 2nd. And if you turned 5 December 3rd, you were not eligible for TK. Now, the new legislation is being phased in. So by 25-26, anyone who turns 4 before September 2nd can be enrolled in TK. Right now, it's we're at February 2nd. So if your birthday is between September 2nd and February 2nd, then the state says you can be in TK. We said forget that. We're just going all in. So essentially, we have universal preschool already here in Windsor. And any kid who turned 4 before September 1st, we enrolled them. And it's kind of nuts, our numbers. So if you look at Cali's never had more than 48 students in TK. We have 100. So we're maxed out. Maddie has never had more than 28, which was nuts because that was one class and they just kept enrolling. We didn't plan to be at 28. We're at 91 students this year. So this is a major initiative. I think some of the most telling data is centered around kindergarten readiness. And if students have experience before kindergarten in school, it's essentially like a 50% increase in how well they're going to do in school. So we're attacking this, and in future years, we're even looking to work with 3-year-olds potentially. But right now, this is where our focus is.
And this is not daycare. They don't come and play out there. This is school.
This is school.
They're learning to read. They're learning their numbers and colors and all the things they used to do when they were 5. They're now doing that at 4.
Wow.
The jump start, basically.
What are the hours?
Same as kindergarten.
Full day.
The same as kindergarten.
Wow. So that's amazing. And it's a great update, but is there any way that the town can support that? Or like, do you need anything from us to like help continue that?
I don't think so.
More staff?
I think, yeah, I'll take staff. I'll take teaching staff. Can I have your preschool teaching staff? That'd be great. I hear they're great. So, really it is more staff. That's where our focus is.
We could have more kids if we had more staff.
What can the town do to help that?
If there's a potential advertising outreach, that could be beneficial.
Yeah, I think probably that is where the area is. Because it's not going to be in the program necessarily. The program's self-sustaining, right? I think it would be an advertisement. And I'm open board. If you guys have any ideas, please chime in. But, I came to John early when this idea came up and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Am I going to affect your program? I was more worried about that. And John said, no, I don't believe so. So, good question. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you.
We thought, I will just say for myself, I thought facilities were going to be our limitation, Mike.
Yeah.
And they are a little bit, really it's staff. And I think Jeremy will talk when we get to the well program, the next slide, which is even 1 year sooner, of how he skins the cat now by getting certification, hiring high school students to be the aides that are in the classrooms. One of the things I've thought about, it would be different to be outside the box, is for the town and the school district look at the commercial office space or satellite campuses that we might be able to use One of the biggest challenges for schools is you've got to be self-contained. So there's not really the ability to find space for another 150 TK students that aren't going to be on a campus. But I will take at your word and say we'll keep looking at it because we are in front of the wave here.
The biggest need that we have for TK is facilities. Bill's right, we just jog my memory. I mean, we applied for a grant. The state has these grants available. We applied, we weren't a good candidate. They're going to a lot of rural or urban places. But when you add this many students and you have to have specific type of classrooms, the TK classroom is supposed to have a bathroom in it, and they're usually 1,350 square feet versus 980 for a traditional classroom. And you also need a playground that's attached. Usually you want a fence around that playground because you got 4-year-olds running around. So we had a ton of interest and we kept expanding. We didn't know what this was going to look like. We never had more than 28. Of course, I told everybody we're getting 120 and they're all, you're crazy. Got pretty close. We're pretty proud of that number. But we've had to keep expanding.
That's
space.
within like 2 months of advertising it. People didn't know it existed until about July 1st. And now we have 190 kids.
For John, do you feel that it had now that it's running? Do you see any impact to the town program? How is that going?
You know, we've been able to still fill our programs for the most part and run them. They're a little different still. We have a Montessori option. And we do have those under threes. We have a circle, moving circle. So, you know, Jeremy and I going into it and staff talked about kind of what the phasing process of the district plan would be and kind of where our numbers were. And I don't think there's been a huge impact. I think if there is any downturn in enrollment on our end, it's probably more COVID related and transitioning back COVID related and getting past the pandemic than it would be competition with the school.
Just for a little edification, Santa Rosa City Schools does not have this started yet. Mark West does not have this started yet.
Yes.
Not a full program, no. Rohnert Park does not have this started yet. We're kind of the spearhead on this.
There's only a couple districts.
Is Hillsburg?
Hillsburg does not.
Hillsburg has no incentive to do it.
Their basic aid, they don't need the extra yet.
Ringham Valley has, I believe Wright School has, and I don't know of anybody else. There may be other ones, I just don't know.
So when did this start?
This year.
This year. And I'm just curious, what type of outreach have you done to the community at large and then also specific to the Spanish speaking community?
I mean, mostly just posted that we were offering it. That's been the main way. I mean, you don't want to go to another district and be like, hey, let me take all of your kids. It's just not a good neighborly thing to do. So
but within Windsor or within Windsor Unified?
Within Windsor.
I mean, has it been through notices or?
Yes, all of the above. So in every different way you can think that a school would kind of communicate is how we've advertised this.
Okay. But kids from other towns can't come.
Yeah, and they have. Yeah.
Slide, Jen. Did I hear that you could have these programs in a satellite site?
You can, but it's not necessarily as ideal because a parent wants their child on that campus, and especially if they have another.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, but you can have, you know.
But that's not what you're looking for.
I don't think so, not necessarily. We're lucky that Maddie is a large campus and that we have some space to expand. Cali's a little tougher, but even so, it's a very refined program, so you wouldn't have a salad campus provided. This is also something we undertook this year. The state, we were planning to do this and the state was reading my mind. And they gave some money, but with some requirements for school districts to offer before and after school programs. Well, we're offering what we call WELL, which is the Windsor Education Learning Lab. And what we found is Windsor is kind of a desert for before and after school programs. There's just not a lot available for families. And we were looking at some of our partners and we were working with them. And we just felt like, you know what, with everything that's happening at the state, we were going to start to offer before and after school services to our students. So we started this year with our youngest kids, our TK, our K, and actually first and second grade at Maddie. At Cali Calmeco, we focused on TK and K. And it's on site because parents want care on site. So we can work with partners, Boys and Girls Club. We still work with Boys and Girls Club. We still work with ECC. But what parents really want is to drop their kid off at school, to know they're safe, and to transition to another place on school grounds, not going to Boys and Girls Club. for the little guys, right? And so that's really what was the impetus for starting this. And we also offer school camps. So summer camps, we had, I think, 9-week programs with all different themes. We do things over intersessions, winter, spring. Eric?
What were those hours that were available for?
We're 7 to 6, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Available, and super low cost or free. It's free. I think it was Eric. It's free for our staff. So that's one of the perks. If your child goes to Windsor and you're one of our staff members, we provide this service.
That's in opposition to one of my next door neighbors who previously was paying about $2,000 a month for before and after school care for like 3 hours a week.
No, we're about $250.
Yeah, so there's a huge drastic difference for our community members if they use this program compared to some of the private groups that were offering childcare.
So Rosa, to the question you asked earlier about compensation things, not only do we have our compensation, but then there's other cultural type things that we're trying to include that we have the ability to, that makes being an educator at our school district like the place to be. So when you got to factor them all in, and they're hard to, some cultural things are better at certain times. When you have little kids, obviously it's going to be better. So it's just, so we're just trying to add more and more value to the things in the areas that we can. So that way we look very, very inviting to anybody who wants to be an educator here in Windsor.
Next slide. This is our enrollment currently, and we could enroll more. So one of the things that we had to do to be creative is, as we all know, tough to hire people right now. And we've had a difficult time as well. So our enrollment, we have about 121 students enrolled at Mattie Washburn. You can see the breakdown in terms of grade level. And then at Cali, we have 60 that we're serving because we're just doing TK and K at Cali, and the Boys and Girls Club, which was already on campus, is serving our 1st through 5th grade there. And at Brooks, we're providing the morning care, so for 7 students. But you see our staff, you see the 17 staff members, 13-1. We have to provide a 1 to 10 staff to student ratio for TK and K and a 1 to 20 for 1st grade and above, right? So that's 1 adult for every 10 kids, or I should say 1 staff member, because you see that wait list. We had a larger wait list issue, and we ended up making the decision to allow our high school students, our upperclassmen, to become kind of like our aides. So they're not in charge of the class, but they are supporting the class, and they work into that ratio for us. And so when we put out this advertisement, we hired 17 of our students. We were amazed at the interest, and they have been amazing, amazing employees. And so we still want to knock this wait list down. We have plans for next year to really affect this. We have a number of part-time positions that we think we can make full-time and have part of their duties be for our program. That'll work for next year. This year, we still have a need. So if you know anybody who needs a job, you bring them to us and we can provide some more services, because we got 42 TKKers who still want to have services. You can see the numbers. I don't need to read them to you.
So again, Rosa, back to your compensation question. Initially, that 17-person gap could have been
34.
Well, yeah, but it could have been a huge impasse with our classified employees, people who are not teachers. They represent, because those are union jobs. And through Brad Freeland and the leadership at the CSEA, the California School Employees Association, they said, okay, we understand that. We'd rather keep those positions, and maybe next year we can find 17, 20, 30, and 40-year-olds who want to get a union job, until they realized they can enroll these students in the union, and they have. And one of the reasons that's good is I know at least 2 of the students who are juniors, rising juniors now, want to be teachers. CSEA has a full scholarship program to pay CSEA members to go to undergraduate school to become a teachers. And so 2 of these kids who looked at it as an opportunity and what would have been potentially, in some places, guaranteed to be a fight with their union because they just fight with management. Now the union has said, we'll support that. Okay, yeah, they can become members. Hey, we have a undergraduate program that we can fund you with. And those students are on their way through a circumstance where a good idea was going to have to be curtailed because we simply couldn't find staff to staff them. So I think that has been just, it's like a win, 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 win. And then you look at these students who are doing it And the CSEA has not, they just started this program with the union with money in the summer, and we're one of the first districts that have CSEA, which I think they planned it as maybe second career people later in life. They were going to go to college and become teachers, and here there's 15 and 16-year-olds that are on the track to do it. So anyway, we're really proud of that. That's
Pretty amazing.
Maybe a little kudos to our director of that young program,
Jessica Borland. Yes, so last year was a planning year for us, and this year she has been working her butt off, guys. So we have 2 people who kind of oversee each school site, and one of them quit right before this all started. So she's been pulling double duty as the site coordinator as well as she's called the coordinator. She's kind of essentially a director. But it's been a lot, and she is the tip of the spear, as Bill always says. We are the tip of the spear in this one because you don't have to implement these programs until next year by the state. We chose to go this year.
And a piece of that student teaching portion, I guess you could call it, is the flexibility that Jessica has allowed them to have. If a student is playing on the volleyball team and has games after school every day, but can come in for an hour in the morning, twice a week, they hire them for 2 hours a week in the morning. They don't need to be a full-time every day doing 6 hours. Any little piece here and there and everywhere to get those kids the services they need. So it's been a great situation, and it's a lot of work to make that scheduling happen, but they've done a good job, and we have room to do nearly 100 more, or over 100 more, it looks like.
We've had our bumps in the road. It's a new program, but I think that we're finding our footing. I'm excited about where we go. But Jim, enrollment projections. This feels like a very long presentation. I'm sorry, I didn't think. My goodness. So I'm going to talk more about this later on. It's agendized. So why don't I kind of jump past this because, well, you know what? I may as well just say we can revisit it. We're doing our facility master plan for our entire district. You guys did one for Kaiser Park, as you know. This is a major ordeal for us. We haven't had one of these in over 20 years. We have facility utilization master plans that have been done, but a facility master plan, like a 20-year document that's really projecting what we're going to do with our district, we haven't done. So we just identified our priority areas. It's TK and K facilities, surprise, surprise. And ensuring that all campuses meet a minimum standard of quality, we looked at that. Deferred maintenance was another thing we looked at, and then maximize our resources to the greatest extent possible, meaning we have property, we have Windsor Creek, we have other things that we could do with the town, and really making sure we prioritize working with the town, utilizing Windsor Creek to our advantage. That's what that maximize our resource thing is. And I'll talk to you about some of the results later on when it's agendized. So actually, would you go back? I'm sorry, Jen. If you look at our trend line, that's our enrollment. Our high point of 1213 and 5,270 students. We have gone down every year since that point, and to where last year we had 4,533 students. I say that because there's lots of building happening here, and I want to explain how it's going to affect us. So this is the number. So through our facility master plan, we have projections, and so these are a lot of the projects that, as I understand it, have already been approved or are on their way to happening. So we considered those 1,711 total units, and we have a calculation with those units. It's going to generate about 882 students. So for like if it's a low-income housing, it generates like 0.96 of a student for our calculation. Single family is 0.44 of a student. So through kind of the delineation of what the projects are, we think we're going to get about 882 students over the however much time it is.
And this is exclusive of the tribe buildings.
Correct.
To the
This
south,
does not
to the
include
east,
the
and
tribe buildings.
west.
I think everybody knows this, but I just want to say it anyway. These are estimates based on numbers that we get from typical communities
Data
around.
analytics.
No. This is specific to Windsor.
No, I know, but the numbers that they're like a point, like 0.96.
It's specific to Windsor as well.
But it comes from their experience in other like multifamily type projects, right?
We asked that question, is this a generic percentage? They said, no, that percentage is specific to the trends in Windsor. I don't know how they calculate that, Rich. I have no clue. But that we asked that question.
Okay, because my experience and what I think these numbers, the percentage is low. So we could have higher numbers of kids. This is just an estimate. It's not a.
Well, if you go to the next one, I'll show you that. Actually.
Okay.
So this is the moderate enrollment projection. There's a low and a high as well, right? So we just chose moderate to see. So you can see we're projected to decline again this year, which we didn't actually. So this was a projection, and we did not decline this year. And then we're projected to have a big jump because a lot of these buildings are going to get done, and we're thinking they'll be populated. But then you see we still have the problem of declining enrollment. Sonoma County, California, we're all declining. So it doesn't fully go away. It gives us a bump, and then the trend continues. Any questions? Not yet. No. All right. Future plans, a couple things. So North Bay Med Academy, I talked a little bit about them. Right now, they are a small school, 80 students. So what we want to do is expand North Bay Med Academy from 9th through 12th grade to TK through 12th grade, become another magnet school, similar to what we did with Cali. Why? It's super unique, and it's needed in this day and age. I think COVID has let us all know that one size doesn't fit all for students. And North Bay Met is a school that I think that there's just nobody who does what we do. And if you mentioned Montessori earlier, Montessori is very much an interest-based program, right? You find an interest and then you use that interest to teach the child. This is just Montessori for big kids, okay? That's what it is. You find an interest and you use that to teach the child. They do internships. We had an 18-year-old student who interned at a pizza place. They loved that student so much that the owner gifted the franchise to the student, and they had to petition the overarching company because he was 18 years old. But we have things like that happen all the time with North Bay Med in terms of our students getting experience that just leads to a job immediately. Part of what we have to focus on, we can't currently expand with our campus. They're on the high school campus in the back.
Beautiful classrooms.
Beautiful classrooms, beautiful.
They love being there.
Yes, but we need a site in order to do this plan. And I don't know if we would build this school on whatever site that we purchased, but we need the site to move things around. And some might say, well, why not use Windsor Creek, right? So let's talk about Windsor Creek. We're looking at.
Jeremy, if I may.
Oh, yes, sir.
This came to us as a creative alternative to what is called our continuation school. So students, sometimes credit recovery, sometimes discipline problems, sometimes team parents, sometimes combination.
Sometimes competitive ballerina.
Sometimes they were professional athletes or actors. But going to a comprehensive, regular kind of school was not fitting. And there was a little bit of pejorative view, frankly, when Eric and I were helping get this set up. It's like, oh, it's those folks in the parking lot. Now this is sought after as a creative alternative by our and you were involved. Thank you very much earlier. But it was a challenge, and it has evolved as the big picture evangelist said it would, to say when you're a comprehensive student, I don't know from the student perspective, it is sometimes sought after and increasingly sought after.
Oh, for sure.
As a very creative alternative that is not just for those students who historically might have been out there getting continuation school kind of experiences. And that, I think, is where Jeremy has, or I know, is part of our vision about we can expand this as an alternative style of education.
Especially after we were all home during COVID and learning differently, parents realized it doesn't have to be that cookie cutter anymore.
Right.
There's a lot of other options available.
I do have a question. So I used to be involved in a program called Full Inclusion. It was a special one. You're familiar with it, all right? So I guess two-part question: Do the kids in North Bay Met Academy, do they socialize with the students from Windsor High School on campus?
Yes.
And then the follow-up question to that, if it is in fact yes, what's the impact if you move them off campus and build a separate campus? Are they then missing that social interaction and that the social development? Because we felt a lot of that during COVID, right? So I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Two things if I could jump in.
Yeah.
There's not a direct one-for-one interaction. So the kids who go to North Bay Met, they're involved in all the same extracurricular activities that we have in the school district.
Yeah.
But their breaks
They're separate campuses.
their campuses are separate and their breaks.
And they're separate campuses, but like literally adjacent to each other, right? Like
Yeah.
they're on the same property.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they don't have the same lunch.
They don't have the
schedules.
same break
They don't go together.
Okay.
It's
So
more of what Rich
I
said.
would say there are positives and negatives in your comments there. Similar to what we have at Cali, it's a K-8. The 8th graders partner with the 1st graders. The 7th graders help the kindergartners. They join a lot of things together. And the K-12 would allow for a lot of that. That's a positive in my view. Some of the negatives not being on campus is that you don't have all the resources. If you want to go to a science lab to do a special lesson, we probably won't have one at this K-12 school, similar to what they might have at the high school. They could still be on the soccer team, but they're not right there on campus to have the lunch meeting that the team might be having, those kind of things.
Right.
But there are availabilities to all that. So there's a give and take in my view.
And often when we talk about like inclusion, we're talking about special ed.
That's a specific
And so
term.
Yeah.
Full inclusion has to do with the special ed designated student, be in the general ed.
I know it's not the same thing. I was just thinking like thematically, like I was, right, like having the interaction.
Got it. No, they have their own, they're really their own campus, their own culture.
And about 7 years ago, when Bill and Esther and I and several others were involved in exploring this, prior to Superintendent Decker being here, Oakland and Sacramento were the only two north of Los Angeles Basin, I think, for big picture learning programs. And we went and visited a couple of those, and our staff was excited. They did all the work. We've got the building, we've got everything going now, and we'd like to make it grow. Others are coming, other districts. I think maybe every couple of weeks we get somebody coming to shadow and model and see what we're doing, and they'd like to try to do what we're doing. I don't know how many have been successful with that, but others are coming to visit us.
Cloverdale's starting one, Hillsburg is starting one, West County is starting one. They're all
Just
modeling
high school though, right?
Just high school. Nobody has done what we're proposing. There's a lot of conversation in the big picture learning community, which is worldwide, but nobody's actually pulled it off. And then let's talk Windsor Creek. So I know a lot of people are wondering, what do we do at Windsor Creek? We're exploring a number of different things. What we're focused on right now is trying to build subsidized employee housing. And we don't know how that's going to work yet. We're engaged with a number of conversations. But why are we doing that? Well, because as you all know, it's extremely expensive to live here in Sonoma County. And we also currently have a teacher classified employee shortage. So if we could potentially build housing on Windsor Creek, subsidize it for our employees, then we could hopefully attract more employees to our district. Okay, that's the basics of this. Now we are, like I said, we're talking to a number of individuals. We're trying to decide which way we're going to go, but we are looking at employee housing for Windsor Creek, and that's why that would not be the best place to build for North Bay, that potentially. And why? Because of its proximity to downtown, guys. I mean, it's just an amazing site for development of homes. And it makes more sense to look at that property as an asset that we could potentially, maximize the value on than to put a school on an extremely valuable asset within walking distance of the town.
And it can't be rehabbed cost effectively
No.
with all the asbestos issues and the EPA issues and such to become a school again unless we took everything to the ground and did a full CEQA EPA program. Whereas if we do this housing project, that's all done by the developer.
The one exception is the gymnasium in fantastic shape. No matter what, we're going to find a way to keep that there. But the school, it's got to come down. It's a mess.
Built in 1953 or something.
The other aspect of that too, it's also an additional revenue source for the district that is not currently available. So it's a win-win deal all the way around.
Right, even with the subsidy,
Right,
like, because not all of it would be subsidized, right?
that's correct.
It's not free housing for employees now.
I mean, part of where this all came from originally is when Stephanie and I first were on the board, we went down to CSBA deal and they.
So it's like the California School Board Association conference.
Yeah.
And there's like 100 different sessions that you can go to. So we don't even see each other, but Rich and I were both in the same session learning about building housing. Yeah. So I think it was just something that we bonded over early on. And you guys did Windsor, you had the North Bay Met experience working together, and this is kind of the thing that we've been interested and excited about.
So so we listened to how some other areas have tried to do some things, and like one of the
Palo
examples.
Alto and some.
Yeah, one of the examples was you get a teacher in there and let's say the rent, whatever market rate is, they get a discount. And then it's graduated over an 8-year period. This is like one district. So it goes up 12% every year, which is not even equal to what their step and column increase is. So the theory is they can save money. They can live there, and
Be close.
at a better rate, but they can save the difference between the market rate. So that way, eventually, after 8 years, they've been here in our community, they actually have a down payment saved up so that way they can buy a house. There's a lot of a variety of different benefits. All of them are positive.
There's only one district that's pulled it off yet currently in California, and it's Jefferson Union and Daly City. So there are a number that are looking. San Francisco Unified has been working on this. There's a few other ones, but only one district's actually pulled it off, start to finish.
We're gonna do it.
And again, we're the tip of the spear, so we aren't hiding from anything. This board's aggressive.
And like you were mentioning earlier about compensation, like this is another way to compensate our employees when we have this limited LCFF funding, limited total budget. Every little thing that we can do creatively.
It won't house 600 people, but it'll give 50 families a leg up.
You got it. That was the end of my long presentation.
See, I'm giving you the pen.
Any more slides, Jeremy? No, golly, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was going to go so long. I'm the mute person. But I am. Just want to make sure. So now we're going to open up to public. Anyone like to make a comment, have a question? We'd like you to use this mic. A lot of information. Maybe you covered it. I know. I kind of covered my item here as well.
I had a question.
Actually, you got it.
Oh, should I get it here?
Yeah.
If you could, whoever comes up, if you could just announce your name
Okay.
and stuff, so that would kind
of. And a newly retired teacher for Mark West. And I was wondering, you had mentioned something about how you could attract teachers. And I'm not sure, I don't want to get too detailed, but in your salary, your step and column, do new teachers coming in, if they've been working in another district for, however many years, do you match that or do you pay up to 5 years? Oh,
we match it.
that's great. So that's
That was
new.
changed by the board, 3 years ago, guys, before me.
That's great.
It used to be 8 years, I believe,
Right.
is what we
Mhm.
take.
It went from 8 to 10 to unlimited.
Yeah,
That's
that way we could
wonderful.
Bring in whoever.
Those old days are gone, Susan.
Well, not
we're bidding
really.
for
There
everybody.
are not
Bill.
too many
Not
districts.
everywhere.
Because I was lead bargainer just up to last year. Yeah, and there are not too many districts who do that yet. So good luck with attracting teachers.
If you ever want to come back into the profession.
Yeah. Take it.
I'll sub starting January.
Hey, we offer a good rate. Anyone else in the
Yeah,
audience?
we increase sub pay if anybody wants to be.
Anyone on Zoom, Irene?
Going once?
No hands on Zoom, Mayor.
No hands are up?
No hands.
Okay. And any final questions or discussion?
I think we're gonna get into.
So then I've been asked to have a short break, like 5 minutes.
Ready, then break.
And then we're gonna come back and we're going to item number 2. And we have, looks like we have a list of items, we only have 4.
We're really bringing
And mine's kind of, I did a lot of it already. Jeremy, I think that's
I just
exactly what this
confirmed.
is about.
And I'm not trying to bust chops here. I just confirmed they're still calling the Wednesday.
Several girls.
I'm letting it go. We're not moving forward on anything else until I get
Your family's on top of it.
gonna get the thumbs up here in a second.
All right, everybody, we're gonna be starting here. You got a 3, 2, you just gotta have your teacher voice, borrowing Jeremy's voice.
Okay, sorry, more interaction. We're good? We're good, okay. Okay, remember to speak up so people in the audience can hear us.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I think Rosa has left, right? Yeah, just so everybody knows at home, Rosa had to leave earlier, let us know. So we're gonna jump to 8.2, the update on North of Arata project. And I think this is gonna be Patrick. Is gonna, oh, I guess not Patrick.
All right.
Actually, that's it.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and school board members. You're stuck with me again. I've done the last 2 presentations regarding the status of the North of Arata project. I'm Kim Jordan. I'm a planner in the Community Development Department. What we've been referring to as the North of Arata project now has an actual project name. It's called Quail Acres. So you'll hear me possibly be using those interchangeably until I get used to the new name. But we're grateful to have something, a different name to call it by. So here we go. So this is the North of Arata Lane area. And part of this area is currently in town limits now, having been annexed, but this area has been inside the town's UGB since the town was incorporated. So this is just a bird's eye view of the area.
And all that's in the district unified property.
So the area in red is the area in the North of Arata area that was actually annexed to the town. And so the area to the east or to the right that extends to Hillview Road, that is in the town's urban growth boundary, but not yet in town limits. So a little bit of background, as I mentioned, this area has been in the town's urban growth boundary since the town's first general plan. In April 2018, Town Council adopted our current general plan, so the 2040 general plan, and certified the 2040 general plan EIR. In July 2018, Town Council approved a pre-zoning of 16 parcels totaling 107 acres. So that's the area to the west in red that you saw in the previous slide. In April 2019, the Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCO, approved annexation of those 107 acres into the town. And then in April 2020, Planning Commission reviewed pre-application plans that included 2 alternatives, one with a school site and one without a school site. So they did a pre-application review of those plans. So this is just a project location map, and hopefully my pointer works. Oh, it does. So here we go. The project site, everything over here, still in the county. And these are the 3 parcels totaling about 58 acres that we'll be talking about, and that is now called Quail Acres. So as I mentioned, 2040 general plan was adopted in 2018. There are 13 what are called community place areas in the general plan. Each of those community place areas has special policies that apply to development in that area. So for this particular project, it has several general plan designations, one of which is a potential school site. So that's the flag that you're seeing. And then the park bench, that is a park site. And then we're going to talk about some of the special community place area policies. So one of the policies is a planning study has to be submitted with the first development project that's submitted. So Quail Acres is the first development project in that area. And so part of their application will have to include a planning study. That has to address the phasing of development and the extension and financing of infrastructure and circulation improvements. One of the other policies is that a school site may be identified in consultation with Windsor Unified School District if Windsor Unified School District determines that this is an appropriate location for a school in cooperation with the property owner. And then a mixed-use neighborhood center located at the intersection of Los Amigos and Arata Lane, and that the area shall include a neighborhood park as well as a community park, and then possibly in cooperation with Windsor Unified School District that can accommodate multiple uses, including sports for Windsor's youth and adults and areas suitable for active uses. And then lastly, area along Sodioma Creek shall continue to be identified as a community or defined as a community separator and shall be designed to be part of a larger network of open space and trails. So there are those are just a few of the specific policies that apply to development within this particular area. So the conceptual application was submitted, as I mentioned before. Planning Commission reviewed the concept plans, and then the developer applicant worked on a formal application. And the formal application is the application that they're actually submitting for a decision by the town. So the formal application was submitted October 19th of 2021. The town is legally required to review that application and provide comments to the applicant within 30 days of the submittal. So the town provided comments November 17th of 2021. Part of the comments that the town provided to the applicant is that they had to choose a project for the town to review and make a decision on, and for the environmental analysis, CEQA analysis to evaluate. So in the formal application, there were, I will call it 2 site plans. One included a school and the other included homes in place of the school. So in August of this year, in response to the incompleteness items identified by the town, the application was resubmitted. And that application included the project that shows that it's all homes. However, they also call out the location of a 12-acre school site that also includes a 3-acre community park. And as part of that, the park includes detention facilities. So once again, the town is required to review and provide comments to the developer within 30 days. So we sent the developer applicant the incompleteness letter September 9th of this year. So the revised formal application, it's 59 acres, approximately 3 parcels, 301 homes. 30 of those would be for sale, affordable. It includes the 3-acre community park, then also a linear park in the agricultural buffer along the eastern edge of the project, and also in along the northern edge of the project within the ag buffer and creekside setback. There's a neighborhood plaza. It would extend Los Amigos Road north to the town limits. It includes a variety of housing types and lot sizes. They're showing 4 phases of construction, and it does identify the location for a 12-acre school site. If the school site moves forward, it would be 236 homes rather than 301. So this is just showing the entire development plan. The colors designate the different housing types. So each different color is a different type of housing. It's a mix of different affordability levels, including, like I mentioned, on-site, affordable for moderate income. So the blue dashed line that you're seeing, that is calling out the location where the school site could be. And then within that is the community park. And so I think that the thought is that that would be shared with the school. So that would be town and school use. This is just showing the phasing plan. So phase 1 includes the single family homes and the community park. Phase 2 is on the north end of the project. Phase 3 is at the bottom. What's being identified as phase 1B, that would be the location of the school, should the school choose to move forward at this location. This is just a close-up view of the phasing plan that's showing the location of the school and then how that relates to the phasing plan. So the approvals or entitlements that are needed for this project to move forward is a tentative subdivision map. So that's required in order to create the individual lots, including the school site. Then site plan and design review is required due to attached units and then the need for a use permit to modify certain development standards. And then a use permit is needed in order to reduce the lot size, lot width, and setbacks. And then a reduction in agricultural buffer is being requested in order to reduce the buffer from 200 feet to 100 feet. The project qualifies for what's called an affordable housing incentive or concession because it includes 10% on-site affordable for sale housing. And then the project also qualifies to use affordable housing waivers. And the applicant or developer would identify the waivers that they would be requesting. And then those are reviewed by the town. And then the project, it's not on the slide, but also qualifies to use the state density bonus law parking requirements should they choose to.
So it was mentioned earlier that there were 30 units that would be lower income or moderate income. If the school were to be built there and we took it to the 240 potential houses rather than 300, would it still be that 30 houses? Or would they bring that down to 24 to meet the 10% number?
They could reduce it to 24 if they chose to.
In the different scenarios that I've seen, I don't know if it's current, but a lot of those were on the school side itself.
Yeah, that's what I was curious.
If you could go back one screen, wait, that, Jeremy, does that look like the last drawing that we saw? This looks very different because the park area was
not
kind
included.
of, yeah, it was up there. So I don't know in this drawing.
It is different.
Yeah, there's,
The 3-acre park is not there.
Yeah,
That's the 9 acres.
Yeah, that's not how this was laid out. It's not according to the drawing that we've seen that Rue gave us that we have. So this is different. Again, things keep changing. Anyhow, I just.
If I might suggest through the mayor, could we have staff finish the presentation and then we'll have the
Yeah,
time
I
for questions
think that's
as
the
we
way
go
we
through
better
that
do it.
process.
Because we'll get, this will go on till midnight.
It's okay.
That's my bedtime.
Yes. So these are the entitlements that would be required for the project based on the application that we reviewed in the last submittal. So the next step in the process is for the applicant to review the incompleteness item and then submit a revised application in response to the incompleteness letter. And then also, to start doing the environmental review required for the project. So the recommended action this evening is just to receive the presentation from staff regarding the Quail Acres development project. And then I'm available if you have any questions.
No. You're going to call on people. We're sharing this.
Bill, you have something like that?
Yeah, a couple questions. Thank you, Kim, for that update. You gave a little description of the initial incompleteness letter. Could you go in a bit to what was included in the September 9th incompleteness items that need to be responded to by the developer?
I actually couldn't
Okay.
answer that question. I can certainly provide you with a copy of the letter,
Okay.
but I don't have those
Is
memorized.
part of it where they are still on a dual track, that's my words, not where they have not designated what their primary project is going to be, and they have a site that has, well, either this or that, a school site or not a school site?
So, no, their project is, all of the homes.
So it's
And-
without a school site now.
However, the reason that is because, I'm gonna go to the phasing plan.
Okay.
So the project needs a decision about creating the tentative map itself. So, and that's why it's calling out the various phases in the project. So if the school is interested in school site here, that's why phase 1B is specifically called out, because that phase would accommodate the school. So if the school moves forward, the project would not record the map to create those parcels. And instead, the school would go there. But if there's no action to approve the subdivision map, the parcel is never created for the school to be there. So I think that's why they've shown the phases the way that they're showing them.
Okay, 1B becomes an alternate potentially.
No, actually.
No,
So
that is true. I mean, the applicant and the property owners can continue to talk, and if the decision is to move forward with a school, then phase 1B doesn't have to happen with the homes. It just becomes one large parcel for the school.
Yes, that's what I was expecting.
Okay. Well, I'm not done yet.
Yeah, no, just raise your hand for this.
I will raise my hand. Okay. Just for 20% of the school board, let's dispel the notion that the school district may or may not be interested in the parcel. We are interested in the parcel and have been from the beginning. You may hear something different from the developer. One issue that didn't show, can you just give us even a rough time frame by quarter or 6-month increments? You showed the next couple of things. How does this flow from where we are now to the project coming in review and going to the planning commission or public comment? What's the sequence and about how long do those take, even as an estimate for us to think about?
I think that that's a little bit challenging to answer. I think something with it, this needs an EIR, and something with that is probably looking at least 9 months.
Okay.
To get to a
That's
decision.
9 months?
Yeah, at least 9 months to get to a decision.
Okay, thank you. That's my questions.
Eric, you had some comments?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the EIR knowing EIRs, would the EIR have as an alternative, as, project as a houses, the number one alternative would be analyzing the school site as a school? So the impacts of a school would be analyzed in that EIR potentially as an alternate if the land isn't purchased by then and it's still sort of an unknown?
We have not identified any of the alternatives that would be looked at in the EIR, but it could be one of the alternatives that we look
But it would
at.
need to be so that it wouldn't exclude the school, and there would need to be an environmental review to help the school district.
Well, the school district, my understanding, goes through its own process through the state. So that's that's different based on what kind of school is actually proposed. But a school in general could be an alternative.
And Deborah, I can just answer a question.
Yeah.
In terms of the different process. So there are different phases that we would go through for school district, but phase 1, we can make a purchase as a school district. Phase 2, we'd have to go through in order to actually build a school. Okay, but we, just as was, we're prepared to make that purchase through just the phase 1 process. But she's right, phase 2 takes quite a bit of time in terms of designating as a school site and what we're going to actually build.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah, yours takes longer. So, so then parcel 1B could be an alternative use until such time as the school is built, like bigger park or an open space or something.
Absolutely.
And so I just have to say this at this point, and I'm probably way out of line. If there's anything the town can do to help you move this project along with the developer, working with John, let us know, because that's the purchase, right?
Make sure I work with John.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
Thanks, Tim. Stephanie, did you have something? Sam had a question.
Kim, the general plan shows the school, a school site, and a park, community plan. The application that we took does not show a school site. There's an alternate, and my understanding is the EIR will identify the homes and not the school. Why? I mean, the intent of the annexation for many of the council at that time was to have a school site on that piece of the town. It was integral to that decision, in my opinion. Why is the application not identifying the school site and doing the EIR and having an alternative for the housing?
I'm not sure how that I can necessarily answer that question. It does show a school site in the North of Verada area. I don't know that it specifically had to be on these properties, even though it is, the symbol has to be shown somewhere. But since there is not an agreement with the developer and the school district for purchasing that property, the applicant does need to identify a project, like I mentioned, and ultimately council will decide whether or not it's consistent with the general plan if it doesn't include a school site.
I guess this may be for council. Does the town have to accept an application that is inconsistent with the general plan?
Yes, excuse me, yes, it needs to be accepted and processed, and not to say that in this situation it is or isn't inconsistent, but also you view inconsistency on that, not based on every little thing, not to say that a school site is a little thing, but on the overall thing. So that really would be a decision for the council to make as a whole based on the project, and it's staff's job and obligation to take that through and to process it and to bring it to the planning commission to make a recommendation and the council to do that. And staff's processing it, isn't taking a position one way or another, and they may have a recommendation, after we've reviewed everything and looked at everything, we do think it's consistent, or we don't think it's consistent, but we do still need to take it in and process it through the normal process. And it doesn't mean that the ultimate decision is that it is consistent.
So, if anybody, I have a little bit that I want to say, but I'm trying to temper my mouth. Does anybody else have something that they want to say about this before I say?
If I could, just before you can breathe for 2 minutes. I will share, town attorney, thank you very much. Back in July 2019, that is, or 2021, that is almost exactly what John's predecessor said, is that the planning application, planning staff review is different from, my words, what would be characterized as a political policy decision by the council or advocacy by our elected board of directors, board of trustees. And thank you for pointing that out, because I think they are, and sometimes we conflate them, we're across the street at our meetings, and I understand from some of my day job work that is the case. And so thank you for making that clarification. I wanted to highlight that had been shared before by the prior town manager.
Thanks, Bill.
So a lot of times we try to keep things to questions at this point. At least that's what the council does, and then we go to the public and then come back and have comments. But
go ahead. I'm okay with that. So here's my question: is there a question in anybody's mind in our town, or in our board, or on the town council, that the reason north of Verada
was annexed was because a school site had been identified and a favorable terms were to be extended to the school district to purchase the property. And for that reason, that area was prioritized. That would be my question. I didn't think anybody didn't know, except for maybe one person who's watching on Zoom, that this whole project is being redone. I'm sorry. I'm going to try and learn. So from the first submittal from the folks up here, is this submittal now, is it different in the way it's configured and laid out? Or was there originally a school site there with a park a little bit different? So that way, because the school site's all contiguous and then the park area was to its side. Are you aware of that other layout?
I've been working on this since it was first submitted. Okay. So yes, I'm familiar with that. So, so a couple of things. You are correct. In the conceptual plans, there was, I will call it a green rectangle, and it was along the street. Let's see. It was like in this area. And then the rest of it was shown as, a location for a school. So what happens is an applicant submits a concept plan to get feedback from staff and then, in this case, Planning Commission. And so they need to do some kind of a layout for staff to respond to. So when we started reviewing it as staff, Public Works looks at it for their requirements. Parks looks at it for the community park, and that rectangle configuration didn't really work for park space related to fields. And then there was a need to provide detention for stormwater runoff in the park. So the location of that rectangle did not work really well for park space, and it did not work for stormwater detention. So as the applicant, which is the purpose of a concept review application, started going through addressing the various comments from staff and actually designing the project and doing their hydraulic analysis and drainage analysis and laying out the utilities, they needed a different location and a different configuration, which is what we're seeing in the formal application. So the formal application that was submitted in August of last year, October of last year, showed this configuration based on about 9 months of having conversations with staff and actually doing the environmental reports to figure out how you make the infrastructure and how you make the drainage actually work, as opposed to just rectangles and, streets on a plan. And that's why we're seeing a different configuration and location of the park space today.
Thank you. So with that, following up, if the phase B is we're seeing this right now, based on your discussion about the drainage and different things, then that area right there really is not a school site then, because the school property has to be together. It can't be, it's not shaped in an L. And if that's the drainage, then that really, if the drainage analysis is not what you're saying, but what they're saying, that basically makes that site not work for a school, because part of where that arch is early on, the discussion was that to keep the traffic, that was the area for the school. So that way parents and folks weren't having to drive all the way into the subdivision to other areas and then out. It was to keep the most amount of traffic right on the main thoroughfare. So by having that site any other place, that would impact the traffic. Wouldn't that make the traffic worse in that neighborhood?
Well, they are keeping it. So here's Los Amigos right here. Uh-huh. So the school would have frontage right here on Los Amigos, and then frontage on this street right here as well. And then you come around, it has frontage here and frontage here. So it is being located in a way that it doesn't folks don't really have to enter the subdivision itself in order to access the school site. And then I didn't mean it to say that there would be any detention being on the school site. It's just like other parks in Windsor that have been designed to kind of do double duty as park space and detention.
Right.
This park has been designed the same way.
So this is maybe to Superintendent Decker, because I haven't been involved in schools that long as far as the layout. Have you ever seen a school laid out in the shape of an L or a U like that?
I have not. No.
Yeah, I hadn't either, but I just want to make sure. And so to quote a friend of mine, it looks like that detention basin is right what they call when you cut out the heart of the artichoke. It's right in the center. So it almost, this layout virtually makes that lot or that tentative map or that area, if it was like this, it would make it impossible for us, not impossible, highly, highly unlikely that a school site could be there. Would that be safe to say?
Without knowing the exact acreage, Rich, it's hard for me to say that, but I would say that it'd be pretty tough to put in the field.
Yeah. As pictures go, it'd be pretty tough.
Yes.
All right. That's, as far as my questions, I'm good with my questions, but so do we want to go public?
Yeah, we're gonna go public. We're gonna go around. We'll, so you'll ask.
Yeah. So thank you very much. You might want to, because people might have questions for you. Is there anybody in the public that would like to address this issue, have questions, or your 3 minutes that you'd like to ask anything? Anybody? Yeah.
And then we'll go to Irene.
Checking for hands on Zoom, and no hands are raised.
Okay. Thanks. So then just bring it back.
Yeah, we can bring it back for comments now.
So Superintendent Decker, Trustee Carnation asked, could this be a school site feasibility situation? The way I look at it, the ponding basin could be similar to what's at Windsor Middle School. We have fields there for softball and soccer and all kinds of things. It's a lower level. In the winter, it's going to flood, but we don't often play there in the winter.
You mean by Hiram Lewis?
Hiram Lewis, yes, in conjunction near the Boys and Girls Club there. The potential Phase 1B properties just to the, I guess it would be north, trying to figure out to the upper area of that ponding basin. It's a large area, but it could be potentially another field or parking, things like that. And then all of what is classified as Phase 1B could be school buildings and entry access. That's the way I see the layout in this position. I don't know that it's ideal, but I can see it working as a school site.
The whole thing. Yes, I was looking at the L shape though.
Yeah.
So if that's 12 acres, the Phase 1B L shape you're talking about would probably be 7 of those, something like that. The parking area is 2 and the field area is 3 to make 12 approximately. So that's just one way to look at it potentially. I don't want to shut down the project because we don't think it's the best layout, but there are architectural things I'm sure we could work on with that 12-acre site. If indeed it is 12 acres and the park isn't placed somewhere else, we'd have to do a little bit of design review. But I have not seen this version, and we've been in negotiation for 6 years now or 7 years now. I'm not on the committee. We have a subcommittee that looks at this, but I don't know that any members of the subcommittee are familiar with this or that you are.
No, this is.
So
this
it went
is
to
a
the
new drawing.
it went to the town council without review of us who are looking to purchase. So it's a frustration.
It's at town staff. We haven't seen it getting there.
Okay, staff. Yes, thank you for clearing that up.
So, go ahead, Sam.
Sometimes we work in silos. And this is starting to appear to me like a decision that was made in a silo for drainage. And really not necessarily considering a school site. And that's troubling. That would be my comment. That's troubling. I'm glad we had this review tonight because this is all new to me. I think and I think we'll have to address it somehow. think if there's a takeaway for the town, we're very interested. We've made a verbal offer. We have not received a response to that offer.
You have not?
We have not. It's only been a verbal offer.
How, was it a long time ago or recently?
It has been last year. It's been 6 to 8 months. I couldn't tell you exactly when. I could look at the calendar. I think we're kind of at a loss to where we go here. This is part of our plan. Every bit of this is part of our plan. It's built into our facility master plan discussion. It's built into my own personal view of our district. So if this becomes something other than a school site, it very much affects how we move forward.
And I'm sorry Rosa's not here, but because I think we talked about this with the rest of it, but for Mike, we went around 6, 7, 8 years ago
15, yeah.
to look at school sites.
Prior
We
to
need
the
12
bond.
to 15 acres, and that's to build anything smaller than a high school. There were 5 spots in Windsor that could accommodate that. One is directly.
In the Windsor Unified District.
Windsor Unified, District, 3 of which were outside the urban growth, in the urban growth boundary outside the town. One is just east of Matty Washburn. One was what is the tribal property just west of the fence by Deer Creek off Windsor River Road, on the north side of Windsor River Road. This particular area north of Arata, help me out now, Jensen Lane, and then potentially the aborted school site was at the end of Vinecrest, which I think is getting developed now by a commercial developer. This was unanimously at the time through the town and the school district, and particularly through like California Department of Education. So when we do a phase 1, it'll take us years to get it approved for a school. And we would not be building it in 2 or 3 years. You've seen what the projections are, but we're building now with an eye towards the 2040 general plan. So I think that's also part of our concern. The next item, you'll get a little bit more of our infrastructure build out, but this and I was at that LAFCO meeting, and our unanimous support of the acquisition and the annexation was because an understanding that out of the 5 sites that collaboratively for the better part of a year or more we worked with the town, this was understood this school site was going to go there eventually.
So could I also say one thing? So a lot of people, you may see our declining enrollment and say, why would you need to build a school, right? But that's not really what this discussion is about for us. So we talked about a magnet school. We're looking to build a magnet school. Almost half of Cali's enrollment is inter-district transfer. And if we build a magnet school, it's not only our Windsor residents who would be attending that magnet school. So yes, we have some decline. We bump up, we're looking at 882 students, and then we still decline. But with the magnet, none of that's involved in that projection, right? If we can attract 400, 500 students, that's not part of the projection. So when we're looking at this, it's not just based on population growth. It's a whole different kind of discussion, I guess, for us.
Plus, there's one thing that people aren't factoring into this. As all the other districts around us also continue to decline, parents are going to start looking and they'll say, hey, what programs are their schools going to have to start eliminating? It's going to make Windsor even more and more attractive over time to where we will be attracting kids on a regional basis in addition to just the kids that are in our town school border as well. So I know that we have to look at that declining enrollment number as a real number that's statistically what we have to deal with. I believe that the practical effect over time, factoring all these things in, is that our enrollment probably could stay pretty steady if we continue to have the programs that we have. So, I'm sorry, Sam, I didn't see it. And so, anyhow, Sam.
I just, that's how you do it. You're supposed to put your hand up and then you get called on. If things are right. Calling on me?
There you go.
We all got a letter from the developer dated September 20, just the date, September 28th. In that, it indicates in the second paragraph, the town of Windsor requested that the draft 12-acre area describe a site plan for alternate uses in order to fully examine the impact should the school district ultimately develop a site for a school which we provide. So what I'm seeing here is kind of the opposite. I'm seeing that what was provided was the housing plan and the alternative was the school plan. And I think what was expected was the school plan would be what would be submitted and as an alternative to housing if the school did. I think, and I think what I recall is the school site was much more contained in the southern area of that 12 acres. And also, I somewhat understood that the school would need 12 acres. So you would have title to a certain degree, or we have joint use, but certainly you would have a certain amount of control over the entire site. And we might share control over the park site, but that was going to be a requirement for a school site. So I think there's things up in the air here that I felt we're going to have to examine. I guess at some point I'll ask for if we can agendize this. If you have to have at least 2 council members to agendize something and talk about this.
So thanks, Sam. I'm good. Deb, you had a comment?
Yeah, I don't think it would do any good for the council to agendize this. This is all about the developer accepting an offer from the school district to purchase the land, and then the decision's made. And then we know, and then we move in the direction of, is that a temporary park until such time as the school? And that's where we need to be. And I'm just so frustrated, probably as much as the school district. So through Jeremy, John, and Alex, would it be inappropriate, it would be unusual for the school subcommittee, 2 people with you, with the managers, and 2 town council members creating a subcommittee, meet with the developer and just hammer this out? So that
Definitely be open.
I would be open to being on that committee and just get this decision made.
So I'll say we will have to look at that a little bit
Look
because
at
we
it.
do, we want to make sure we're not in a position where,
Right.
and I know we've all talked about this, where council members are committing one way or another before
Right.
that.
terms
But
of
we could
assistance.
see if there's a way to make
Yeah.
that. We could certainly look into that.
I
see if
just
there's
wanted
a
to
way.
move us in some direction instead of just circling the drain. And so if there's anything related to that where we could help in terms of my previous comment, I'd love to be a part of that.
Oh, sorry. Just again, I'm sorry, Mike. To that, Alex, the council and the district a few years ago established a joint ad hoc to do that exact same thing, Deb.
It's expired now.
And I believe this now has run its long in the tooth, but that is the process we're not to
And I
negotiate,
was on that.
but to be
And I was on it too.
coordinating, and nothing happened.
I think it's
It withered
time.
like those things do. I'm sorry, Mike, I said that.
You're fine. So first of all, thanks to Jeremy, because I was biting my tongue to ask the question, why do we need a new school if we're showing declining enrollment? And so I think you answered that, and I appreciate that. You did it before I had to ask. But can you help the new guy understand why, attracting students from outside of the area? Like, what is the benefit to the Windsor Unified School? Like, how does that help us? I just close that loop for me, because I don't know.
2-pronged. So if we attract, so this school site would be a very unique program, okay? It'd be something different than anybody else offers. So first off, we'd have a program that's unique to Windsor that our students can access. Okay, that's the first part, right?
Yeah.
If you have relatively few students, you don't run a classroom with 6 students, 8 students. It doesn't make sense financially.
Right.
There's actually a certain number that you hit where that pays for the classroom. Let's say we have teacher, we have aides, whatever it is. Let's say that classroom costs $150,000, if you will. So that's offset by, let's say, 12 students. Well, it's 1,319 is 15 students, right? So if you have a classroom of 20, through economy of scale, you can actually grow your budget as a school district and provide more resources for others.
Yep.
So essentially, that classroom that is paid for by 15 students, those 5 students generate $50,000 in income. We can give increases, we can programs. That's really why.
Okay.
A piece of the, maybe it's not the time for it, but I'll chime in. A piece of the declining enrollment, and it always has been, but more so lately, not only is the cost of housing, but it's the aging of the community. When I purchased my house that was built in 1994, every street on the house had kids in it. Now there are like 2 out of 12, and mine being one of them. My students have matriculated through and are now out on their own, and We don't have any children at home, but we still have the same house. And many others are in the same situation. So young families are having a very difficult time coming to our community, not being able to purchase a house, not being able to start their family. And so, it's helping somewhat that we're now having more units available for purchase and for build. We didn't have that for many, many years, as you all know. So that's a piece of the declining enrollment as well, is that it's not that students are leaving because they don't like our schools. There just aren't enough students available. Aging out of it, yeah. And the cost of moving in is so difficult. I could afford my house. Well, we were overextended, but it was only $179,000 in 1996. Now it would be $800,000 or something. So my kids couldn't afford to buy the house that I purchased 25 years ago.
We went to the audience, we got a public comment, are we ready to move on?
At this point,
I think we have work to do on this issue.
actually,
Personally.
I think we have a lot of work to do that can be resolved quickly if there's a will.
Okay, 8.3, Windsor Unified School District Facility Master Plan Update.
And guys, this is more than anything. It's almost a placeholder. So it's not done, right? So I don't have something to present to you, which would be ideal. But I wanted to put this on here because there are a number of projects being discussed within our facilities master plan that have to do with the town enjoying use. So what we've done is we've organized a committee of 22 people. We have town representative on it. Olivia is our rep. And we are working with Van Pelt Construction Services and CASA, which is our architect. So we've held meetings to do some planning, and really the first meeting was all about what is a facility master plan and kind of explained the process. And then we just had our second one that established priorities. And in my PowerPoint, I listed those 4 priorities. And today, actually, at 2 o'clock, so it's not in my presentation, we were told kind of the results from the committee in that first meeting of where the priorities, which rose to the top. So number 1 priority in a landslide was TK and early education facilities. Because we're doing TK, we don't have the facilities for them. Number 2 was maximizing our current facilities, talking about Windsor Creek, what we could do with that property, but not just that, also north of Jaguar Lane. We both have interest in the Kaiser Park master plan, right? We own property there. And so talking about what we could potentially do together, what we would do with that parcel, I think is a discussion that we should probably have. And then number 3 was, major deferred maintenance, roofs, HVAC, it's always a need. And number 4, we had an article, we had an item called campus parity, which really is just all of our schools being at a certain standard. That was the 4th priority for this group. Meaning, and a lot of what we discussed was, well, let's say the high school. High school is beautiful, right? It's very pretty campus. Cali is not so pretty. But then when you look at that, Cali has a wait list a mile long. So is that affecting enrollment? That was the discussion that we really had. And so that was our lowest priority was campus parity, meaning they should all be the same standard. Our next meeting, we're going to giving people money. We're saying we're putting them in teams of 5 and they're a school board. They get to decide what to do at that point. What are we building? How you get the money? Make some decisions. And after that process, we're going to have our facilities master plan with our identified priorities and projects that we really want to focus on. So for this group, I think that we should probably discuss, we already discussed North of Dorado. That's part of our facilities master plan. Within this facilities master plan, we are discussing the construct of our schools. We're different. We don't have neighborhood schools right now, but that is something that we're discussing, is potentially moving to neighborhood schools, or do we stay where we're at? No decision has been made, but the discussion should happen at this point. And then also we're talking about north of Jaguar Lane. You guys are looking at, we've had a presentation, and I don't know how much has been shared already, but we talked about what the priority was from the community for Kaiser Park, and full rose to the top. And so we had a different idea at first. We were looking at kind of a multi-use facility that we could do a joint thing with the town. But I think that needs to be a discussion that's had at this table as well. So again, I'll have something better for you next year to present the facility master plan, but this year I thought it was important for a discussion. Can you give the council a sense of when the report back is to the trustees and
Yes,
when you anticipate having that out?
January. So we're hoping to have this thing wrapped up by January. We should have a draft in front of me and probably the board in December. But then, we want to two-touch things like that. And so we'll probably have it approved in January.
So I have a question. I believe this is related to the facilities master plan. I know that with the bond money, there were some improvements made to certain gyms. And this question relates to school lockers. Is there a reason that school lockers are no longer used? I know the kids, students, are carrying heavy bags. And I just wonder about that because it just seems like it. Oh, I think we might have a student who has some input here, but.
Hey, everybody. Hi, thing. I'm going to answer Jackson.
Generally, how it's been explained to me is that we no longer need to carry our textbooks to school because they have textbooks in classrooms or they have online textbooks and stuff like that. So there's no longer a need to store everything in a locker and come back to it between classes. Facilities wise, it's difficult to incorporate that on. What do we have? 1,600 students at the high school. I don't think we can. We barely have room for it in the locker rooms. We have lockers for PE students, but implementing it isn't as necessary as I think it used to be. I mean, I've talked with my parents about how they had it and why they needed it was mostly.
It was on stone tablets.
Yeah.
They were heavy to carry. Yeah, but I still see students though today carrying heavy bags. I mean,
Probably their laptops, right?
So as an aside, before I got on the school board, I was over at something at Maria Carrillo High School, which is configured sort of like ours. It's external travel. They have, and they were built in when they built them, they have external lockers that are behind security gates. So there's at least one school in our county, a high school, that has it, what always struck me as odd. I'm from Chicago, so everything was inside and we had lockers in the homes, but
so they have them there.
they have them out there. That's in Santa Rosa High School, they're in the inside, and I don't know about.
They're outside.
Yeah. I just always wonder about back injuries, really.
I don't know the decision on making on that.
My understanding was that the lockers were actually primarily at the middle school, and it was something inside the gym that they were doing, and it was determined that the kids just weren't using even what was there already, and so there wasn't a need for more of what they weren't using. That's hearsay, but it's my recollection from a while back. And the other thing is, so Esther, what we're doing is when they're at a certain age, we just start them off with one bag and one book. And then as they get, we're training them. So by the time they get into high school, they're really good wrestlers and they're set.
You have conflict of interest, so you're behind this, right?
Well, I'm just saying that
The overload principle.
it's an unintended, it's a lucky thing that happened. And that's why we're so good at wrestling, because all our kids are have big backpacks.
Yeah. I did at one point wonder whether or not it was related to safety, and no?
Not actively. I mean, it may have been at one time, but not at least under my administration.
Okay.
Eric, if I could do one question off that topic a bit, not to make a non sequitur, but just for the notice of the council, it was mentioned earlier that from our 2016 bond, facilities bond, we have an additional, I think, 7.5 remaining. Piece of that, or some of that, is used for potentially north of Arata. We're holding that in escrow somewhat. But an additional $3, $4, $5 million is not going to build that school site. So we are looking in the future, maybe sooner than later, at another bond. So that's something that you'll want to be aware of, that the community will have to support or not. But if we do build something out, we will need 30, 40, 50 million, 60 million like we have now to make that happen.
What happens if the community does not support that?
Then we can't build the property. We can't build out the school site. So that's a concern for us as well. We would own the property and not have facilities to put on it.
I'll just close out the locker conversation. So I went through Windsor schools and we only had lockers for PE, so I think it's been the same since they were built. But one of the good things at the high schools, we have block scheduling that rotate from day to day, so you only need half of your things each day. But I know that especially in middle school, the kids are carrying very large backpacks. I know my kids do, and I don't really understand why. Like even, I don't know, so maybe there's something we can, I don't know if
Check
it's
things
causing injuries, I don't know. But they
That's
do have
something
a
that
lot of
crosses
things
my
that they
mind,
carry
yeah.
around with them. I don't know if it's all required or it's just they want it, but.
I haven't received any inquiries in my
Yeah.
2 years.
You haven't received?
I have not.
I'm glad I'm the one to throw
There
a
it is.
curveball in your direction.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I was just talking to Ava, because we're both in AP. I probably have one of the heaviest backpacks at school, at least on B days, because I have a lot of classes that day that use a lot of paper. And what I was talking to my friend about this, and what I kind of realized, because sometimes I walk to school and I can, and then it gets a little heavy, but it struck me how little time I actually spend wearing my backpack, because I just put it down and then I only really needed to walk from one class to another. So I'm probably at school wearing it for less than 20 minutes a day. Like I don't spend a lot of time with my backpack on. And I see a ton of kids with very, very light backpacks. Also, the A-day, B-day split really, really helps, because I can have all my A-day stuff one day and all my B-day stuff another day. But I'm not a super big kid, and I can carry what I have fairly easily. So I think if we were to put them in, I can't say that they would receive a ton of use. I don't think the students feel like they need them. I haven't heard that from the students.
Jackson, a question for you. If you had the lockers and you had your books in them, and then you didn't bring them home, you wouldn't study them, right?
I
mean, you
would
would.
be scared to put my stuff in a locker because I'm not great at remembering things. Plus, it's just an extra step, like go from class to locker to next class. I think what you'll see is a huge portion of kids just wouldn't use them. I mean, we could put something out saying, hey, would you use a locker? We provided one, but I think it's even hard for students to say, oh yeah, we would, and then we get them on campus and they're like, actually, this is way more inconvenient. I don't think the student body thinks that they need them very much at this time.
Thank
Good
you.
to know.
I think we did go to the audience on this item, did we not? And we just came back for comments?
Master
No,
plan,
we
no.
didn't go. Nope, then we'll go. Anyone in the audience want to give us comments on the school district facility master plan update?
You guys covered it.
Irene, any hands raised on Zoom?
No hands are raised, Mayor. Thank you.
So any final comments? I've got a final comment. We talked a little about in the facilities master plan, you're going to talk about neighborhood schools.
Yep.
One issue that's come up, and it is pertinent to north of the Rata site, and that's the vehicle miles travel analysis. And it's been suggested by the planning commission that the town adopt a certain type of screening.
Right.
And that screening may require a school site north of Arata and be neighborhood. And so just so you kind of understand that, how you deal with that, I think that'll be yours, but the council may have to deal with that and say that in order to be screened, it would be a neighborhood school, would be identified as a neighborhood school. And that's so that we can justify screening it on the DMT. Just so you get an, if you have questions about it, you need to ask, because what's going to happen is a normal single family development will have to go through an environmental impact report, and it will fail. And it'll come back to the council for overriding considerations because it generates too many vehicle miles traveled. And so that's the nature of the screening, and that's, I think, one of the areas that we can help you with in obtaining the site. And I think that's been kind of agreed with the developer too. And I think that's where the council has to kind of move forward a little bit on it, and that's coming before us.
And just in case anybody at home is listening, it's very easy to get these terms confused. There is a school in the neighborhood, which a lot of people use generically, or neighborhood school, which to a lot of people just means that the school is in that neighborhood. But from a planning standpoint, a neighborhood school
means something different. So that's why a lot of times those words have been used interchangeably. I think I've even used them interchangeably. But for the purpose of the VMT, a neighborhood school has a specific definition versus a school in the neighborhood. And so.
For us, a neighborhood school would be a TK through 5th grade school.
Yeah, right.
That's what a neighborhood school would be.
Right, that's my understanding too.
And it would be different in Mark West, it'd be TK through 6.
Right.
But here it's TK through 5.
Okay. Good. With that, we can move on. And item 4 is update on the Kaiser Park Master Plan.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We do have Olivia Lehman and members from Gates and Associates, the consulting group working on this plan here tonight, to give you a presentation and share with you what they've been working on.
Great, thank you. As John mentioned, my name is Olivia Lehman, and I'm with the Parks and Recreation Department. I am joined tonight with Dana Falk, who is part of our consulting team with Gates and Associates. And tonight we are here to present to you the findings of our community outreach, which is phase 1 of our Kaiser Park Master Plan update. I went fast. Sorry, I guess I can do it from here. All right, thanks, Irene. Just a little bit about the flow of our presentation. We want to just give everyone an update of the project to provide kind of a baseline of what we have completed so far and where we're headed. And then we're going to really get into the community outreach and the findings that we have come up with based on a fairly extensive outreach process that we conducted this summer. And then we want to end with partnership opportunities and next steps for the project. So just a little bit of history. I'm a visual person, so I like pictures. This is a photo of Kaiser Park. You can see the adjacent Windsor High School, which is down below, with Jaguar Way that runs in between the two facilities. The town has recently acquired and purchased 3 separate parcels. We have 625 Wall Street, which has the upper asterisk, and then 450 Duncan and 475 Ginny, which are in the asterisk on the side. And then we just wanted to acknowledge that the school district has recently acquired a parcel as well. I believe it's 488 Ginny, that is the asterisk right above the word school. And so this is the property, and these are the properties that we're looking at through this process. The existing and current Kaiser Park Master Plan was completed in 2008. And it had the original footprint, or what we now have as the current footprint of Kaiser. Phase 1 was completed in 2011 and included the 3 ball fields up top, the playground, restrooms and concessions for the ball fields, as well as parking. And phase 2 and 3 were always called out as a future phase, which would be a rec center, community building, and aquatic center, as well as additional parking. And this was a great project, and this is what the town has been working forward towards since 2008. However, the property expansion was never included in this plan. And so when we looked at completing the phase 2 and phase 3, then we really also needed to factor in the opportunities and the potential for expansion. And that's really what led us to begin the Kaiser Park master planning process. We do want to just really briefly acknowledge that the expansion of Kaiser Park and the build out of Kaiser Park is called out in both our general plan as well as our Parks and Recreation master plan. The general plan has general themes of sustainability, connectivity, resilience, community health and well-being. And then it really drills down specifically into priorities and goals that require us to, that drive us forward to expand and develop Kaiser Park. There were also quite a few goals within our Parks and Rec master plan that called out for this project as well. And this just lists out some of those. but really maximizing our park facility and ensuring that we are staying up to date and keeping pace with our community needs for their recreation and community activities within our park system. And so that really led us to the project vision, which is to create a path forward for the town of Windsor for a community derived and implementable master plan that we can really take to the end, that we can finally build and build out and develop within Kaiser Park. So we were here a year ago. Actually, it was 13 or 14 months ago, and that really was the kickoff of our project. And based on that conversation at this joint meeting back in July of 21, we actually put the whole project on pause to allow the school district and the town to come together and work together to understand whether there might be a path forward for a joint project. There might be some partnership opportunities. We talked about property acquisition and the potential that and challenges that there were based on the grant that the town received and the easements that are required as part of that grant. And so we paused the project until February of 2022, when it seemed like between the town manager at the time and Superintendent Decker that we had developed a path forward, and we established some communication to allow us to continue to move forward. And so we picked the plan back up. As I mentioned, we started our community outreach this past summer, and that is the exciting things that we have to present to you this evening. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dana, and she's going to present some of the community, the findings, and present with us our next steps.
So just as a high level, I'm going to go through the planning process that we've done since February, when we kind of re-kicked off into the rest of the plan as we see it happening over the next just about a year. So in early spring, we started talking with the community in smaller events, and then launched a community survey in the summer, as well as did some community outreach in person at the town green here. We were able to speak to over 200 people in person and received over 700 community survey responses. So that's almost 1,000 people that were putting information, into the project that we're able to utilize as we move forward. As you can see, outreach extends beyond just spring and summer of 2022, because we will be going back to the community as we work through design concepts and determine different alternatives that Kaiser Park could take. So we'll be going back to the community in winter of 23, where we come to a preferred design at the end there next spring through summer, with the preparing the master plan and the environmental reports that are required of any planning process. A little bit more detail on that outreach. You guys are our last event in our phase 1 of listening to the community. We're going to be going back, creating different design options, and then coming back to the community to determine the preferred park concept. And then ultimately, when the master plan is put together, it'll be out to the community again. So there are going to be 2 more rounds of engagement with the community for input to create the best Kaiser Park master plan that there can be. So what I'm going to talk to you guys today about is what we've heard from the community throughout all of that round 1 outreach that we conducted in spring and summer of 2022. We were able to get in front of a lot of people. Like I mentioned, 1,000 participants through the survey virtually, as well as through these pop-up events on the in person at the town green. You can see pictures on the right, people getting engaged with us. We had some dot boards out there asking people a lot of questions about what they like and what they want and what they would like to ultimately see in Kaiser Park as it's built out into the future. The community survey asked the same questions, and we were able to broadcast to the community through multiple different means, virtually through social media, through emails, as well as posters and banners posted at the site itself. So trying to get the word out, trying to encourage everybody to share what they'd like to see at Kaiser Park. Some of the questions we asked were very specific. We wanted to know what elements of the park, I realize you guys can't see that because it's washed out, but you can see the numbers. We asked the community, what did they like most about the current site? And overwhelmingly, we heard that the community really likes the natural aspects of the park, the walking trails, and the Oak Grove ranked highest. There is a blue bar that you can almost
If you
see.
look over here, you can see the
There you go,
bar
the TV,
better.
if everybody wouldn't mind turning. Yes, the TV shows it a little bit better. So you can see that the natural elements of the park were really highly regarded by the community. And then following that was social and physical and play activities such as the playground, attending special events, and utilizing those sports fields. So this gave us an understanding of how the park is used today and what elements of the park are well regarded by the community. We also asked the community to help us start to prioritize some of the items that were not only called out in the 2008 master plan, but some of the things that were discussed in the Parks and Recreation system-wide master plan that was adopted just a few years ago. So we gave every participant different amounts of money. That's the next slide. This one just asks people to rank it. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. So we just asked people to rank their interest in the amenities that they would like to see built, to try and see what things were rising to the top in terms of, yes, this should be done first. I would say a little bit unsurprisingly was the Aquatic Center. Most people chose that as their first option. That's the dark green, followed closely by the multi-use paths and then the Community Recreation Center. As you can see, that Aquatic Center was very highly regarded as the first choice by most people. This is the question I meant to be talking about last slide. So we gave people a theoretical $7 because we understand that with a budget, you can't build everything. So we can't go out and build all of it all at once. So if we had to start phasing and start to prioritize the things that we'd really like to see, if we had a very fictional budget of $7, every single item on the list on the prior slide was given a monetary value. We gave the Aquatic Center as well as the Recreation Center a value of $4. You could not pick both. And we asked the community to spend their $7 on what they would like to see built in Kaiser Park into the future. The Aquatic Center received 79% of the votes there. So not only did people really want it, but they were willing to pay for it when they had a budget to work within. When we asked people about those two big buildings that the 2008 master plan initially called for, we wanted to know what spaces inside of them people would be interested in seeing. So for the Community and Recreation Center, we heard gym, teen center, and the multi-purpose community rooms. And for the Aquatic Center, it was a lap instruction pool, water play, and water slides. Now we heard a lot from everybody. And what we needed to do was start to understand how were these big ideas and these big questions we were asking, organizing in a way that we could respond to as we developed concepts in the next steps of this master planning process. And through our analysis of almost those 1,000 responses, we generated 6 community themes shown here on the screen. Social, physical, connecting with nature, play is popular, balanced, passive and active, clean, safe and well-maintained, and diverse and all-inclusive. Now, each of these different themes were generated from multiple different questions, comments we heard from the community, as well as our understanding of how people are using the park based on what we heard from them. For the social and physical theme, we utilized some of the data for how people are using the park. As you can see, the S are social things and the P are physical things. And these are reasons that people gave us about why they visit the park. A lot of them that were highly ranked are both social and physical. And then when we looked at things that people wanted into the future to add to the park, many of these are also social and physical things. So balancing the social and the physical aspects of the park in the concept design will be important to the community. The second theme of connecting with nature was evident by how many people ranked the Oak Grove and the walking trails as their most liked amenities of the current park, as well as some of the things that people would like to see into the future. Trees are always ranked highly by the community, and it's great to hear because everybody loves to go see trees, and your guys' Oak Grove is fantastic. So continuing that and keeping it into the future and allowing that space for people to connect with nature is important. Play's popular theme was looking at both the existing uses that people are utilizing, the playground and the sports fields, as well as some of those desired additions that people would like to see in the aquatic centers that are play-oriented. Balancing passive and active. When we looked at some of the things people are doing, as well as some of the things we were told that they would like to be able to do there, there's a very diverse spread of active uses, such as the sports fields, and passive uses, walking those walking trails through the Oak Grove. So making sure we stay balanced as we look into the future for Kaiser Park is going to be important. The clean, safe, and well-maintained. We heard anecdotally from a lot of people that the park is very well-maintained, and they want to keep the park safe and clean as we move into the future. So making sure we're looking at lighting, regular maintenance, and perpetuating the safety for all users will be something we need to consider as we work through these design concepts and come to the community. And the final theme that we identified was being diverse and all-inclusive. Not only is that diverse in the uses, but it's also the access to those uses. So when you're looking at the types of uses you provide, there needs to be ones that apply to younger children or smaller playgrounds, as well as all the way up to the senior aged residents, where we have the accommodations for different mobility, where we look at different interests and making sure that we are accommodating everybody who wants to and can use the park as we look to its design. We saw this earlier. Sorry, I had to rethink myself. We saw this earlier. And as we go through the themes, we're starting to go through the themes. We're starting to see how some of these ideas are evident in the different amenities that people want to build, how aquatic can balance both passive and active. If you're there for a swim lesson and getting to know your neighbor, if you're using a multi-use path, you're connecting with nature and you're also being passive while recreating in the site, and so on and so forth. So understanding that these themes are really driven for how we can start to build the park out into the future based on some of the amenities people have highlighted as important for them. We have had the opportunity to meet with the WUSD about Kaiser Park and the master plan. On the left are some of the responses from the survey results and the ranking of how they turned out in the responses. The ones that are highlighted yellowish are ones that were also identified in our conversations with WUSD for joint opportunities, something that they could utilize as well. So how could we start to partner on the site to provide the different amenities that would benefit both the town as a whole and WUSD's mission to educate everybody. I just want to give you guys high level next steps. We will be coming back to town council in December and having a new neighbor meeting with those adjacent residences on the east side of town, where those new parcels that Olivia explained to us were purchased, just to hear from everybody. We will be doing those design alternatives in the middle of the master plan and working through that when we come to the December council, as well as going to the community in winter of 2023. If you guys want any more detailed information than the kind of very quick breeze through I went to today, there is more information on the project website. We put all of this into a nice packet that goes through all the different data we heard, all the different high points, and explains the themes in a little bit more detail than I did today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana. I just want to close by stating and just sharing that the town, when we re-engaged with the process this past February and March, we immediately identified stakeholder groups and special interest groups, and we did meet with those special groups prior to going out to the community. The school district being the first committee that we met with. And we met with the facilities committee of President Carnation and Trustee Adams, as well as Superintendent Decker. And so a lot of the questions that we asked and we surveyed were based on those early stakeholder meetings. And so we were able to incorporate questions and ideas and concepts that came with our stakeholders discussions and focus groups into our survey process. So the information that you saw today is a real, it was an opportunity for us to find out and really test the waters on not only recreation facilities, but possible educational facilities as well. We did include CTE facilities and teaching kitchens and culinary schools and spaces, just to include and make sure that we were asking the questions of the community that might have interest in both partnerships. And so I just wanted to share that because I'm not sure we mentioned it at the beginning. And so with that, we are both available for questions.
I'm curious if you did any student outreach other than Facebook or one of those kind of things to click on a survey. We've got 1,600 high school students who will be citizens of the community for a long time to come, we hope. And do they have a survey they could take?
We did not do a separate student survey. However, we did work with the school and use student interns as our engagement. And we actually brought in, do you remember how many students we used? Maybe half a dozen students. It was right around the end of school, so it was a little difficult because we did it right after graduation, but used student interns to help work our events. A couple of those photos, you actually had Windsor High School students in them. And we were encouraging them to help spread the word amongst their communities. However, we didn't do a separate survey specifically for students, no.
Olivia, could you guys go back a couple slides to where you had the graphs? Yeah, right there, that'd be a great one.
Yeah.
And would I be wrong where it says the aquatic center, it looks like that was obviously number one, was biggest in the green. That was the first priority.
They're ranked by the grades.
Right, but are you ranking them by the green? The reason why I ask, because the multi-use paths, it's got a bigger green than the community center. But if you look at what people's second choice is, the community recreation center is the biggest. It's the most number of second choices. Is that, am I
Yes.
wrong or is that correct?
No, you're correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so the yellow is the second choice and the orange is the third choice
So
or
is the
priority.
reason multi-use is ahead is just because the cumulative amount, so the it looks like the multi-use path had more first choices and it had more third choices, but the community recreation center was overall by a lot, it looks like, was the second.
And if I point you to the section where you can also see the blue, which is overall selection. So the reason that it's ahead is because there was just slightly, it looks like about 40 people chose multi-use paths over community recreation center. But if you're looking at number 2, you are correct.
Yeah, I'm just
They're very close.
just wanted to make sure I was
Yeah.
seeing it the right way.
Mhm.
Thank you. Or interpreting it the right way. is what I meant.
Any other questions? And we'll go out to the audience. Anyone in the audience like to make a comment, have a question?
I'm sorry, I just, is it okay if I just say a comment? I thought it was a wonderful presentation, very informative.
Thank
you. Did a lot of work on
And we'll go to Zoom. Irene, anybody on Zoom?
No, Mayor, no hands are raised.
Next time we'll see if we even Zoom the meeting in. We had nobody on Zoom tonight, which is not a bad thing. Go ahead.
So I'm
Some
going
comments.
to follow up on my previous question about the student survey. When you go out for a new survey, which you said will be happening shortly, or
We will be doing additional community outreach. We may not do a survey in the same way.
I just, I don't pay the bills. I don't know if it came in the water bill or if it was on Facebook, which I didn't notice or something, but I never took the survey and I'm very involved in the community. So maybe we need to explore other ways to get the word out. I wasn't at the community event with the tent that day. I probably didn't go to the farmer's market that week. So where would I find the survey? How would I access it? Is it going to be linked to the water bill? Is it going to be on the screen by the Safeway Shopping Center? What, how do I find that?
Yeah, I mean, so it was pretty much in all of those places. It was, we
I
had.
just-
Eyes.
Do you have any suggestions?
No, I was just wanting to make sure how it went out and what it will be in the future. I
Okay.
didn't do well with that one, I guess.
It went on the town's Facebook page and kept popping up, and I finally took it.
Yeah, Jackson.
Yeah, I will say I'm one of the youth commissioners on the Parks and Rec board, so I did see this 2 weeks ago. But something I had brought up then and something that was brought up today is that I do think the best use of maybe joint use of that property that the school board holds on to is students really, really want a competition pool. That was one of the ones that was mentioned, but I think that's one that we should prioritize. I mean, that's one that's been asked for a long time. And I think it's easy to look at the swim team and be like, that's kind of a small group that we might not want to spend a ton of money on. But I think that if we build a competition pool, that swim team becomes a lot bigger immediately because it's so much easier to be on. So that's been something that students have been pushing for a long time. So now would be a good time to.
So by that, you mean 25 meter, right?
I'm not sure what they use.
The starting blocks. And
It's,
stuff.
it's a 50 meter by 25 yard.
Okay.
It could be a 25 meter short swim pool.
Bigger than a lap.
Which, yeah. No, actually, it's a 50 meter pool by 25 yards is a full size. It's a full size competition
Like
pool.
an Olympic pool.
If you go 25, you're doing more turns. The times aren't quite the same, and it's that if you go to a 40, you can configure it differently to where you have a 40 meter to accommodate polo. So there are a variety of different configurations, but they.
A short course competition pool has to be, I believe, a minimum of 6 lanes by 25 yards, and it can be incremental. So 25 yards would be the minimum that the 6 lane by 25 yard would be the absolute smallest that we would want to do for any type of short course competition. A 50-meter pool is a full Olympic size, and they're traditionally 25 yards by 50 meters. That's similar to what the JC just opened this summer. SRJC just expanded their aquatics facility and built a 25-yard by 50-meter pool. That is not required to host a high school level short course competition. You would probably need, ideally, would probably be 8 to 10 lanes.
What size is contemplated when a lap pool was in the questionnaire? Is that the configuration you were just?
We did not get into that level of depth in our minds, and being a swimmer, you know, I always love pools. You know, we want to make sure that we're not only accommodating competition and lap swimming, but also adult lap swim and adult fitness. And so we envision probably the best setup would be a multi-pool setup, which could allow for competition, water exercise, swim lessons, water polo, and so, I mean, yeah, and then a recreational component. Those traditionally have about, the comp pools traditionally have 10 lanes by 25 yard, and then you would have a smaller water fitness that could potentially have lanes as well.
Well, thank you for the presentation. It's very informative. I just wanted to remark on, I didn't know what would come out on top, and I find it's overwhelming that people want the aquatic center. I just find that very interesting. I know we've talked about a gymnasium, recreation center. I don't know what is the, like, is there more, I guess, direction to, I don't know what I'm saying exactly, but is there a timeline, or do we just need more community input before any of these things become finalized? I think is what I'm asking.
So I'm going to go back to our 2008 master plan, because I think that gives us a sense of where we're headed. I'll get there. So we're hoping to have an updated master plan or phasing plan for the park, which wouldn't, I think because of the information that we got, we're not saying that we're only going to do a pool or a gym. We will continue to plan for all of the facilities that we believe are appropriate and have a space at Kaiser Park. So we will come up with one of these. Our goal in the prioritization question early on was for the phasing piece. So if we only had $7 right now, what would we build first? And how do we then develop a path forward with the funding that we have? Not to say if $100 million didn't drop out of the sky tomorrow that we wouldn't build out the whole park immediately, but it hasn't happened to me yet. So I'm not holding my breath. And so the prioritization of pool over gym is not one or the other, but which goes first.
I think every Tuesday and Friday, those 6 numbers were only 6 numbers away. And being completely done. But I'm sorry, Bill, did you start? Did I jump on you? Nope.
Oh, you're doing fine.
If you look at this picture right here, some people were talking about the different pool configurations. This particular one was set up so that way you had the length to go, but you could also have lanes turning sideways. So it was a multiple. You can configure the pools to do a lot of different things. When you want to have, the one thing that wasn't mentioned also is diving. There, you know, a lot of kids like to dive, and you got to have certain depths. You have to have, your pool has to be a certain size, so that way you can meet all the regulations for the depth, the sides, all the different angles of attack that the kids will dive in. So there's a lot of things that you can do. The recreational component of an aquatic center pays a lot and offsets a lot of the bills. So you want to make sure that if you're going to do something, you have that in there, because that's where a lot of people, they will pay, and it helps defray a lot of those
Daily
costs.
use fees
And so, and then there, I think right where the word phase is, I think there was another area of a pool, and that one as well. I like the fact, and I hope people hear it, that this is not an either or. I mean, we're planning, and I want to get on a soapbox or whatever, but you know what? The reason why this and the master, what I want to call the multi-use building, for 25 years, I've been coaching and going all over every other school, facility, all over Northern California, actually all over California. And I was dreaming, and I've been dreaming of all these different, and looking at these different aspects of these different facilities and how these kids and those communities have certain advantages and benefits. And I've always asked myself, why not in Windsor? Why not? I mean, truthfully, like Stephanie, well, when Jackson was talking about how the students want a pool, you're the next student that left, that graduated most recently, and you've been being told about having a pool in Windsor since how long?
I mean, we've talked about it for a long time.
Yeah, since you were a kid as well. So it is time for us to get that going, but I don't know if it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, that there's an opportunity for us to have a multi-purpose thing. And when I say thing, it's to be described still for our community, that we can have over in that area just north of where the gym is. We talked about this a bit before, but I really hope, please, town, don't shrink our dreams to meet our current income right now. That is a mistake that we can't overcome. So if we don't know what we want to do in an area, then just say we don't know what we want to do in that area. But don't put something that is, don't put something in an area that is just not what we're capable of. And we might not be able to afford it today, but we might be able to afford it down the road. So let's plan for it. And it's just we just have such an awesome opportunity, and I hope we don't sell ourselves short.
If I might, through the mayor. So to your point, President Carnation, you know, this is not an official staff report, and we're not asking for official direction from council. But staff wanted to bring the presentation tonight because some of us are privy to this information, and others, this is the first time you've seen it. To the point of the town planning something or under planning something, that's one reason that Olivia and her team are here today, is to gain consensus that we are all comfortable moving forward as partners, even more so than we already were. And as we move into this next phase of investigation and outreach, are we comfortable considering all the properties to the east of the park in that process? And that includes the school district properties as well as the town properties. Of course, this is high level. We're not down to the size of the pool. All those are all good comments. We may not even be close to a charrette level, but just in this conceptual path forward, are we still all in agreement that we want to work as a partner and look to the horizon for something bigger, better, and greater? And during that process, the potential for funding mechanisms may come forward. Is that what we're somewhat looking for, Olivia?
Yeah.
Well said.
We've had that discussion as a board.
We have.
And there is consensus amongst our board that we want to be partners. And that our property is on the line here so that we can use that to have some sort of joint use project.
I'm still learning about school finances, and what I know is what you showed me tonight. What I sort of envision for the future, and I don't know, I have no idea what the timing would be, I would hope that somehow, and this would be hard to do because you need to bond for facilities, but I would hope that one of the bonds would include assistance or include something that's a joint use within this park. And then I would envision the town asking for a parcel tax for another part or a bigger part, whatever percentage, but so that we can start to have the things that people want. That's kind of, we were looking at a parcel tax 15 years ago, and we asked people, would you support $47 a year? Would you support 64? Well, now the costs are like triple that, if not more. But that's kind of what I see us trying to work out in the future, is how we both help fund it.
Sure. And I think that's a possibility. Obviously, we have not had that discussion.
Right, we haven't
But-
either, so.
But absolutely, that would be part of the discussion
Yeah.
we'd be willing to have as a board.
I just
Sure.
said that without any input from anybody else.
But I understand where you're getting at, right? It makes sense, so.
Okay.
But John, to answer your question, we as a board, I know that we've discussed it, and it's been discussed over time. Together, as partners, we can do more, and we can leverage each of our capabilities much more. And so it was unanimous amongst the board. I mean, we absolutely see this as a partnership where again, we each are working, we're kind of have responsibilities over different parts of all the families in Windsor, but ultimately we're all responsible for everybody in the families. And so I think it would be, our goal is to work together and do something there. So I appreciate you pulling me back in on that one.
And this is reminding me, Jackson, when I graduated from high school, the next year, my brother's class, they're the ones who got the pool. And I still, every time I drive by.
You resent that, don't you?
Santa Cruz, I drive by Harbor High, I look down from the Highway 1 and I look at the pool, and you know what? I'm so old that they've replaced the pool already. It's a different pool now, so you're reminding me. But every time my mom and I drive down one, I go, you know what, I never got the pool. And she goes, stop saying that. So that's actually just
That's gonna
Stephanie.
be me.
That's you.
In like,
That's
Or
gonna be
Jackson,
you.
You have comments on this item, and then we'll have closing comments. On this, yeah.
Yeah, to echo what Deb said, and I want to acknowledge Dana. Thank you. I've participated in, I've done a number of master plans. I'm very impressed with your group. I think one of the things we need to talk about, and perhaps not today because it's getting late, but we're certainly, I think, contemplating, both organizations have elections in November. I would like to have us, when we get to the close, talk about in the first quarter of 23, can we have another one of these meetings? Because I think one of the things that we need to do is figure out from these concurrent revenue or overlapping or competing revenue measures over the next period of time, figure out how to maximize and interrelate them. I would be remiss if we look at that pool and say, there are our taxpayers and there are also funding sources from outside the taxpaying community of Windsor. And, I think revisiting is the ability to tap into neighboring jurisdictions or outside money to really think about this notion of both and, right? And I think that in a long-term view, I'm not sure how that gets put together, but that certainly is what we're thinking about. I wrote a note to myself when we were talking. There's a lot of things I don't like about Roanoke Park, God bless them, but I really admire when they designed the town, they did schools and parks together, and 2 or 3, I don't even know how many pools they have. And it's been a long time coming, and we've sort of been on and off again, and I think we are almost at an unprecedented level of communicating in a partnership fashion, looking at solutions between the town and the school districts, and that's very refreshing. Thank you for that.
Olivia and I have a connection to where the school actually paid some extra to make sure it was a competition pool in another community. So they did not have a competition pool planned, and the school put up some money to make sure that happened, and now we have a swim team.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Something like that. I'm not committing that for our district. I'm speaking of another area of the county.
Can we get some Calistoga winery money?
Calistoga country wine. Yeah.
And I just got a closing on this issue. I was at the park today getting my recycled water, but visit the park this week if you can. It is the most beautiful place that I've ever seen in terms of what's happened with the rain and the oak grove. It is spectacular. There's a layer of green grass through the oak grove that I've never seen. And to see how well maintained the park is right now, it's pretty amazing to me. I've spent a lot of time in the park with the hot air balloon people, and it just, I took a picture of it, which I don't take a lot of pictures, but if you get a chance, go look at it. It is really breathtaking.
Sam, remember the year you and I put all the mulch out? Sam and I, together with his dog Raven, put mulch out over that whole area for the balloon, it was, yeah. I don't know if Joe was here then.
Do we want to?
And last comments here, and then we're
Just
gonna
quickly kill Sam's vibe, sorry. I went to the Lady Jag Bowl, excuse my term. That's what they called it. I was one of the officials with Bill, calling all the flags and stuff. And I parked in the backside in Kaiser Park. If there's some way that the town or the school or both can do a little bit of grading, that is nothing but potholes going in and out of that back area where we park in the dirt to go to the field, and it just beats you up as you drive through it. It'd be quick and easy to get an hour in there with a grader or a tractor filling in some potholes. Just a little sidebar, sorry.
Thank you for that.
I'll make a final comment on this topic. I kind of tempered it earlier, but I think at least speaking on the school board side, we're really excited with what we're doing. I think we're really excited with the direction we're heading. I feel the same from the town. I feel like it's all a very good energy. I know that I'm really excited on working with you on, hopefully I get to stay on the board. Those of us who are up for election, we're all hoping that we get to be here, in a few months and continuing on. But whatever project it is, I know I organized the field trip to Roanoke Park where we went and looked at that facility there. So I think I grew up here at a time when a lot of things were changing constantly because we were growing. So I think my generation was so used to things changing all the time and used to new things. We kind of got used to new things too. So I think we're very open to continuing to make improvements. And I think that is something, I think we have some things that we haven't finished in town. And I think we're kind of at a time where we can do those things. I am 100% certain we can come up with a way to finance things. I think there are so many creative things we can do that doesn't necessarily put the burden on the taxpayer. So I'm just excited to continue working with you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then, thank you. Then the last thing, closing comments from council members and board of directors, trustees. I think we heard,
I think Stephanie was
Eric,
all set.
I think we heard one from you, a meeting in next year, in the first or second.
There'll be some turnover one way or the other potentially, so.
And we want to leave that up to Jeremy and other comments.
I would echo Stephanie's comments. And then I'll also say that it really feels like we've made a lot of progress since the meeting that we had a year ago when we were speaking about purchases or acquisition of land. I really do see a lot of progress and I'm really loving what I'm seeing and hearing. But I concur with Stephanie completely.
Is it gonna be? Yeah, do you have a comment?
No.
You want me to?
Comments from the audience too, if you have a closing comment, I'll open it up to the audience.
This time.
Thank you. I get, I just want to say this, irregardless of how the elections come out in a month or two or whatever it is, I know that this is an issue I've been semi-passionate about for a long, long time. I'm not going away as a citizen anyway. So it's just, this is the most exciting part of the whole night, to be honest. It's just because it's got so much potential for us, for our kids, grandkids, and our great-great-grandkids that could really differentiate. And actually, I just got to say that on the 50-meter, I forgot, 50-meter pool versus 25. No, you guys, there's such an attraction of people that will come to, they will come to an event that's a 50-meter pool so much more than they will to come and do flips in a 25-meter pool. There's no question about it. So it also is an issue of putting Windsor on the map as our swim teams, our recreational centers that we can do. There's just a lot that we can do in this park that will take it from a gym to a polished gym of greater stature with a lot of the things that we can put in around it. And so anyhow, I'm just excited about the potential. So.
So it looks like we can adjourn to our next meeting. The council's next meeting is October 5th, and the Board of Trustees is scheduled for an October 20th meeting. So with that, permission to adjourn?
Yes, thank you very much for your hospitality.
Thank you.
Yes, glad to get it together.
Nice to see
This
you.
is,
Nice to work side by side.
Hey, Rich, sometime other than tonight, can you please explain to me why when you talk about pools, you use meters, when you talk about the length and yards, when you talk about the width?
Because meters is the distance in which